You're listening to the Plane Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carla Stebbings, Matt Smith and Neville Bounds.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 228 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and joining me in the garden studio this evening is my co-host Matt Smith.
I know, we're in the garden, and I don't want to alarm anyone, but the weather has been glorious, apart from last Friday where it did nothing but rain solidly when I was coming back from the airport.
We
had actual rain, and on Saturday. And we're now outside, decided to... Carlos texted me about 1 o'clock this afternoon and said, shall we do an al fresco podcast? And I went, yeah, what a great idea. And now I'm looking just behind him and there's some very dark clouds behind us. Now he's looked at his lightning map,
there's nothing
and
there,
has assured me that there's nothing there to be worried about.
It's almost like the military segment behind me. It's
Carlos?
the military segment behind me in the sky.
It's the military segment behind you in the sky. Right, there we are. Good. That's in no way offensive to our wonderful serving military. And you've dropped the military section this week as well.
I know, but I have dropped that military segment for a good reason. But anyway, joining us back again this week. And
he'll never learn. He keeps asking me these questions. He'll never learn, will he?
Back again this week. He's back after his week off last week because he was very busy attending some royal wedding somewhere.
No, it's because we were doing the show on an inconvenient day to him. It's not. It's
Neville Bounds. Welcome back, Nev.
Yes. Excuse me. Beg your pardon. Yes, here I am back again. Quick question for you though: is al fresco when you do the show without any underwear on? Is that the?
Maybe I'm using the wrong word. Yes. Yes. Never mind.
Anyway, delighted to be back. Thanks very much indeed for having it back on a Friday evening, which is
we missed you last week. Now
much more convenient, I have to say. But yes, Saturday I was attending a wedding, so I was not able to be on the show, sadly. But looking forward to a great one today. Got a lot to pack in today, haven't we?
We have a busy show. Yeah,
we certainly have. So joining us here in the garden studio this week is someone who we haven't had on the show for a while. He's been busy flying everywhere, there, here, there and everywhere. It's our awesome friend of the show, David Corson.
Hello everyone, hello Carlos and Matt and everyone else in the chat room. It's good to be back, although I'm very surprised you decided to go outside because it's looking very, very, very grey over here.
Now you've come from Essex, haven't you?
I drove straight from Essex.
Yeah, and how was the weather?
The weather was good, the traffic not so good.
Right, okay.
But there we go, we'll leave that to another day.
Yeah. So David, we're going to have a chat with you later on the show, but how's things going just briefly with the flying?
It's going. As you said, I've been all over Europe flying and trying to get my hours in. I've just started training towards my commercial licence. So I'm getting there. Progress is being made.
Exciting.
We'll chat more about that later on.
So we have also got with us some guests via the realms of Google Hangouts. So joining us back...
Pardon?
Google Hangouts.
Google Hangouts, everyone.
Google
it's a new one.
So joining us back on the show again, it's everyone's favourite pilot. It's Mila.
Hi, everyone. I guess you guys can hear me but not see me. Of course, like 1 minute before we went live, my camera just decided to...
stop working, which has been really helpful, hasn't it? So
it's sorry about that, but nice to see you guys at least and be on the show, and I'm sure it'll be a good time.
So Mila, we'll have a chat with you later as well, but you've also got some really exciting news about what you've been doing with the flying. Yeah, so we're looking forward to that as well. And joining us as well, we have some podcast royalty joining us this evening, and he's everyone's favourite person from Pasadena and the kind of the across the pond.
He's certainly the only person I know in Pasadena.
I know,
anyway.
I know. But you may have heard this young gent on the Airplane Geeks podcast. It's Brian Coleman.
Well, guys, thank you so much for having me back on the show. And I thought Alfresco was a show where Captain Al was on. So
good point. Al.
On form.
Yeah. I should just stress here that whilst I'm getting some abuse for this, ladies and gentlemen, the lovely Jenny in room, who we can always rely on for reliable comment and translation, has indeed highlighted that actually I was using the correct word. It means outside in the fresh air. So to the lot of you, that's all I have to say.
Oh, well done.
Absolutely. I thought I was doing right, yes. You lot are just trying to wind me up. That's what it is.
So welcome to everyone in the live chat room this evening.
Oh, yes.
Loads and loads of people in there this evening. We've got, just to mention a few, we've got Falco's in there, and we've got Tony S., Jenny Parkinson, Neil Lanwarn is also in there. We have got Mariana, hello, and Masha's in the chat room. We only saw Masher a few weeks ago.
We did.
At Farnborough, yeah. And our main man, Micah, as well, is in the chat room. He's our blue spanner of death this evening in the chat room.
Along with Neville, yes.
Along with Nev. And we've got Barbara Parrish is also in the chat room as well. Tanya W.
Now,
Hello
I've had
to
the
you.
pleasure of meeting Tanya because
Have
when I was in New York, she came and joined us at Cat's Diner when I went out with Micah on the Saturday
Did it have
before we
Catsy?
flown. No, it's KATZ.
Oh, okay.
Have you not watched any... when Harry Met Sally, the very famous scene, that scene that film is very famous for was filmed in that diner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And also, we've got some other podcast royalty in the chat room. Captain Jeff.
Oh, no. Oh no! That means we have to behave ourselves now. Where's the fun in that? We have to pretend like
we started on time.
Well,
let's be honest.
I know, but now we have to sort of pretend that we know what we're doing, and it's very stressful.
I know. So we have got a packed show this evening. We've got loads of news stories to get through, and we've also got another awesome segment from the Farnborough Air Show that we were all at a few weeks back, and that is on the.
Well, it's basically
it's
basically a pilot pip segment. Essentially, with a little bit of technical help from the legend that is Sir Neville of Bounds.
Yes. Nev has again done an absolutely fantastic job of putting together a awesome segment of all the footage that was recorded from Farnborough. So well done, Nev. Just before we go.
Thank you.
Yes. But I suppose we ought to do some news stories this week.
You want me to do that?
I know. Do you want to carry the segue a bit longer to give you time?
There we go. Yeah, keep talking. It's all good. Right, we're ready. Go.
So we are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Matt.
Oh, always. I'm slick as you wouldn't believe.
Oh, good. If you're ready, Nev.
Yes.
Are you ready, Dave?
No.
Okay.
No, I just thought it'd be funny if someone said no for a change.
Okay. Cheers. Thanks. Brian?
What the hell?
Yeah.
Mila.
Let's go.
Woohoo. So, kicking off this week's first news story, this one is on the cnet.com website, and this is awesome. Me and Matt were watching this for about 300 times before we started the show.
Yes.
And the headline is, for those of you who love your aircraft or airline safety videos that you should all be watching when you board an aircraft and are getting ready to take off. So Turkish Airlines have released their newest safety video, which features characters from the Lego movie. One of my favourites, as I am a big fan of Lego, as you can see inside the house, because I have a box of Lego. Anyway, the latest...
Do you actually?
Yes, I do. The latest trend
such a child.
The latest trend in airlines trying to catch one another out isn't about the comfort of business class, but rather about the creativity of their safety videos. It's one of those things that barely anyone watches as your flight is taxiing for takeoff. I always do. So over the last few years, we've seen the Lord of the Rings characters from Air New Zealand, and we've seen smart choreography from American Airlines, and now the now defunct Virgin America and something appropriately French from Air France. Even normally staid British Airways jumped aboard, lining up a load of British celebrities to remind you of where to find your life vest. Though some flyers wince at the more whimsical ways to snare your attention, I applaud the effort of the newest bid from Turkish Airways, featuring the characters from the Lego movies. Opening in a Lego hangar with Lego aircraft in a Turkish livery, the action quickly switches to a Lego cabin where we see
Can I make a suggestion? Rather than you describing the video, we have it here. So why don't we play
a brief statement here?
I don't wish to be boring here, but we do a video podcast. Otherwise it's basically sort of 10 minutes of my life I'm not going to get back. So
the story does go on whilst I shoo a wasp away from it. In all seriousness, so regardless of whether you like funny videos, pay attention to learn the basics. So Matt's going to play that video for you whilst I kill this wasp.
Yes, we've got a wasp to deal with. So yes, here we are. Sit back. Seat tables in the upright position. Here we go.
Wow. After our last adventure, I guess you could say we've kind of become movie stars.
But we're between movies right now. And what do movie stars do between movies?
Star in a flashy airline safety video! Can we get the step-by-step flashy video instructions, please?
Here you go.
Step 1. Make sure you're inside the airplane. Oh, here we go.
Carefully stow your luggage in the overhead bin.
Whoa!
Emmett!
Oh, I thought you were a suitcase.
You can also store it under the seat in front of you.
What's next? Oh, please say seatbelts, please say seatbelts.
Seatbelt.
I knew it! When the seatbelt sign is on, please fasten your seatbelt. Keep it fastened and visible while seated. Yes! You can release it as shown here when needed. The cabin crew also provides loop belts for infants.
Step 2, don't be afraid to use shameless celebrity cameos in your safety video.
Did someone say cameo? It is illegal to smoke on this flight, including electronic cigarettes. It is also strictly prohibited to smoke in lavatories, which are equipped with smoke detectors. So don't even think about it, hombre.
Batman, do you want to sit next to me?
No, I fly biz class.
Set phones and all electronic devices to flight mode. All devices with no flight mode must be switched off. For takeoff and landing, please unplug all devices. Small devices may be held. Large devices must be stowed. If your device is lost or falls into the seat structure, call a cabin crew member.
Step 3, a sweet moment between a parent and child.
Dad.
In case of a loss of cabin pressure, oxygen masks will drop down automatically. Pull the nearest mask towards you to start the oxygen flow. Make sure your mask is well adjusted before helping your child.
Stop being weird.
Step 4. It's not a flashy airline safety video without a song and dance. That will get stuck in everyone's head for the rest of the flight.
I got this. Attention to all passengers on this flight. We're gonna have a good time in the air tonight. It's some party in the sky. Let's pack our dreams and fly. It's a party.
Stop! It's gonna get stuck in my head. No one wants to hear a song about safety.
Moving on. Emergency exits are located on each side of the cabin at the front, center, and rear. The exit signs help you locate them. Locate the nearest sign, which may be behind you.
Hey, there it is. Ow.
In the event of an emergency evacuation, leave the aircraft following the exit signs and illuminated path along the aisles. As you exit, please leave all your luggage, high heels, and sharp objects behind so as not to impede the rapid evacuation. Exit doors are fitted with slides, which will be operated by the cabin crew in case of an emergency. Your life vest is located here or
so
here.
You kind of get the gist
Place
there.
it over your head and pull the straps tight.
That is definitely
Inflate
one
as
of
you
the
leave
most
plane by pulling
interesting
the red toggles are blowing into the
videos.
tubes. The light will come on when in contact with water.
Okay, we'll turn that down while it's still playing in the background. Now, I don't know. I kind of like it. Yeah, I kind of like it, but there's some chat room comments going on here. Basically, it's not made for the older generation. Nev had said, actually, imagine if you're an 80-year-old passenger. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit on the fence with this one. I kind of like what they've done with it because they're trying to make it sort of. I quite like some of the. Yeah,
Immersive.
exactly.
I noticed that they didn't say put the mask over your nose and mouth, which is quite typical at the moment because people seem to be forgetting that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
maybe they've missed out a few things, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
What do you think, Brian, from across the pond there? What do you think?
Well, from a communication of safety information, wasn't really a fan of it. However, I did watch it, so there's something there. I tend not to pay full, complete attention to safety videos, so this one definitely did get my attention. I think that it's also great that they're talking about Legos, and since my new adventure now is involving Legos,
right?
You know, that was kind of fun. So I'll put the URL in the show notes, or if anyone's interested in Legos, they could go to craftplicator.com. Self-promotion here, and take a look at the new project. But no, it was. I don't know. I wish that they'd stick to more traditional safety videos.
So we'll just run through a few of the comments here in the chat room here. So Tony S is saying, I think it's sad that airlines are having to use important, or they're basically using important safety videos as an advertising gimmick, which I don't blame him for. Falco's then saying, I'm sure they do it so that people find it interesting and maybe watch and pay attention. Nev, you're not a fan, judging by these comments here.
No, it's a safety critical piece of information, isn't it? So why would you present it in this way?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. As I say, again, imagine if you're an 80-year-old passenger, as Nev said, and it's not made for the older generation, said Falco. The safety video should be used, should be a standard ICAO video for each aircraft type. Then no excuses for people not following the instructions. That's from Tony S.
I guess Brian made a good point, though, that the fact that we watched it, it's entertaining. That's the whole point of the video, isn't it? There's so many people, you go on a plane, you don't pay any attention if it's like boring as such.
I mean,
at least it got people watching it.
And also, if you've got kids on board, obviously, because it's a big film, whether it's going to be quite successful, because obviously the kids will think, oh, it's a Lego movie, and then they'll sit down and watch it. So maybe even if it just gets the kids more involved, they can tell their parents how to do it because they weren't watching or playing with their tablet. I don't know. I mean, it's...
Falco's just asked Brian whether... he's just noticed a 3D printer in the background. Were you involved in the making of the Lego safety ad, Brian?
Ah, right. Yeah, okay.
No, I was not asked for my consulting advice on that, unfortunately.
Well, that's rubbish, honestly. But
anyway, so
yeah, so it's safe to say the chat room has very much been sort of split, really, by the by that. Yeah, moving on.
So moving on to the next story, and this one was one that popped up in the news feeds this week, and I really have to say, Matt, this is a pretty good Ryanair story for you this week.
It is, yes, and I've got a couple of videos that I'll play for you at the end of it, but the long and the short of it, so this is on the independent.co.uk website, and it's a Ryanair story, because it always is when it's story 2. Ryanair passengers forced to evacuate plane after mobile phone bursts into flames. So all passengers were safely evacuated back to the terminal, and cabin crew dealt with the mobile phone, the airline said. Now, despite having said that, you'll see in the video, I don't know if I agree that everybody was safely evacuated from the airplane, but you'll see what I mean in a moment. So terrified passengers on a Ryanair plane at Barcelona were ordered to evacuate after a mobile phone caught fire. The passenger's device was being charged by a battery pack while the aircraft was on the ground, preparing to depart aboard a 737 for the short flight to Ibiza. Dramatic footage shows that it initially burned a hole in an aircraft seat before being knocked onto the floor in flames, with smoke pouring from the... Oh, sorry. With smoke pouring from the fire...
That was almost back.
Yes, indeed. She's having a lie down by the look of it. With smoke pouring from the fire, cabin crew organised an emergency evacuation using the inflatable slides. Footage shows some disorder, with passengers being sent down chutes, even though others had not cleared the slides. I'll show you a video of that in a moment. A passenger who was filming it said that the fire... who filmed the fire and loaded it to Instagram, adding it looks like it's a halfer. I don't know what that is.
I think that's harder.
It looks like it's harder to get to Ibiza than we thought. I've never seen so many people so scared in their life. This spelling is I'll tell you what, it's a different generation, isn't it? I'm a bit...
It's one for that new segment that Nev's going to do.
Ah, yes, yes, absolutely. Portable charger. Trouble is, Carlos, I'm worried that you're going to appear on it every single week, because I've seen your tweets. Anyway, portable charger blew up in the same row I was sitting at the airline, said passengers on a Barcelona to Ibiza flight on the ground in Barcelona experienced an emergency evacuation caused by a mobile phone catching fire. So basically you get the gist. But the reason why I'm concerned, and I'm now going to...
I was going to say, Matt's now going to play the videos. For those of you watching in the YouTube chat room, if you watch these videos, let us know your comments on this, because they are interesting videos, to say the least.
The videos are available if you are listening to the audio version. If you take yourself to the independent.co.uk and then search for Ryanair fire plane emergency evacuation, and you will no doubt find the videos that were associated with it. So we're doing the evacuation or the fire first? Which way around should we do it?
Do the evacuation first. That was right.
That was quite special.
Yes.
This is a real treat, ladies and gentlemen. Brace yourself. Here we go. Pile up is one word.
Pile up.
Yeah. Now, I thought you were supposed to release one person at a time.
That's it. Kick him in the head. Yeah, that's it. Kick her in the head. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crush him. Yeah. Crush. Oh, yeah. Crush her. Yeah.
Yeah. This is going really smoothly, isn't it? Yeah.
Ryanair, lo que toca.
Yeah,
but it was nice the way that the person of size kind of moved the people off the ramp, though. So.
Yeah, it's like Skittles, isn't it?
There is that.
Human Skittles, absolutely. But I mean, all jokes aside, there's a serious point here. I mean, you've got you've got this awful thing going on here. But I mean, say you've got somebody who is the size and slight of Dr. Steph, and then you've got me behind her, and if she hasn't cleared that slide, I'll be as careful as I can, but I'm going to hurt her. Because I'm quite a large gentleman, and I mean, she'll be catapulted off it into the terminal building. I mean, I don't understand what was. I mean, I would.
It was.
I love Ryanair. Don't get me wrong. I know, but somebody needs to get severely told off for the way that evacuation took place. I think, because that is very much not okay. You know, and why wasn't?
I think in addition to that, I think some people in their beach clothing attire might not have had safety on their mind either. It saw a lot of people with flip-flops, a lot of people with shorts. Certainly, if people have polyester pants or women with a rayon dress, for example, that stuff melts as you go down the slide, and just not very good.
Indeed. So there's another video that I'm going to play very quickly.
This next video that Matt's going to play again is
it's two favourite topic. Well, one particular
so
favourite
good.
topic of ours, which is so the first one is actually to do with the fire itself, and here we go. Yes, so this is actually the mobile phone and the battery pack that had caught fire. Now we're going to go back to the chute, as I call it, so people going down the chute. That's fine. Yep, that's absolutely fine. So this gentleman goes down. He's wearing his flip-flops, as was mentioned. Not good. Great.
This woman's got no bag. Good, no bags. We love no bags. Very good. He's got a little man bag.
Oh,
we'll
dear.
let him off.
No,
we'll
it's
let him
going
off.
downhill.
We let him off.
Oh, she's got a handbag. Oh, and here come the suitcases.
Here come the suitcases. And we've got suitcases again with cars on the front. That's always good. We've got the kitchen sink was then just coming down.
Absolutely. So you get the idea, basically. People just aren't getting the message, are they? They're not.
We're making light of it, and it's obviously funny to watch because no one was injured. But if this was a really bad emergency, a lot worse than it appears to be, that could have been disastrous. That could have led to people's deaths with the way they were getting off that plane and the suitcases they were bringing with them. And I think Micah said a few weeks ago that people need to be brought to justice for doing that, because yes, they were fine, it all worked out okay. But what if it hadn't? What if their stupidity had led to that being a lot worse?
It's terrible. It's just, honestly, when I saw that, Matt, I just thought I really need to cover this in the show this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like I said, you said at the beginning of that bit there, segment there, we do cover stories about this all the time of people taking their luggage off the aircraft, which, you know, a man bag or a handbag is okay, but when it's a full-size carry-on suitcase,
it's not
That's
okay.
a bit much.
I have literally, unfortunately, I have literally just heard from our expert on this, unfortunately, but I can't. I'll try and WhatsApp him. We might have to come.
Okay.
We might come back to the story while Carlos is.
What are you going to say, Brian?
No, I was going to say, talking about holding people accountable, there was a very unfortunate shooting here recently in Los Angeles, and so I'm not sure if the listeners are familiar with it, but there's a grocery store chain called Trader Joe's, and this guy was speeding along, being chased by the police. He crashes his car, gets out of the car, shoots at the police shoot at him, and unfortunately they end up shooting the store manager, and she ends up passing away. The guy who crashed the car, the criminal in this case, is actually being charged with murder, and I don't have a problem with that. So yes, technically the police officer's stray bullet shot and killed the woman, but if he wasn't acting so irresponsibly, that never would have happened. And so same thing with, I think, people getting off aircraft, taking their multiple suitcases, as we saw that one individual do. Yeah, if anything happened, I think that they should be held accountable for that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. I mean, it's just... I mean, the thing that we weren't there, obviously, and the one thing that really concerned me was in that first video where they're literally, like, one after the other, bounce down the thing. Now, surely there should have been cabin crew controlling the people leaving the aircraft, or is it, I think
they may have been a bit more worried about just getting people off the aircraft. Maybe the person at the bottom of the slide could have been doing a better job. I don't know what the situation was. I noticed Masha in the chat room has said it didn't look very impressive, and they're surprised that there was an emergency evacuation, which I think a lot of people will comment on now you've seen the footage of the fire and what happened and what chaos it caused. But if the pilots weren't told, if they were just told there's a fire in the cabin and they didn't have all the information, they obviously couldn't see it firsthand.
Yeah, fair point.
They weren't to know that what they just need to take it as seriously as they possibly can do.
The fire wasn't that bad because we all saw a picture of it.
Exactly.
Expert with their iPhone.
With their their expert iPhones, as you would expect. Yes, indeed. It's So
but still, if I'm a passenger on the plane though, and there's a fire, I really don't think I'm staying around very long to see if it gets worse, and to a point where there should be an emergency evacuation like that. I don't know. Fires on boats and airplanes are just not good.
And it's on the ground, hasn't taken off. It's going to be full of fuel potentially. fire, fuel, not a good mixture. Yeah. I like Micah's comment in the chat room there. Doesn't Ryanair have an evacuation fee?
Possibly. Yes.
Perhaps it was a chip and pin not working.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe the card machine
the contactless.
Was down.
Come on.
Right, yes.
Anyway, moving on. Right, okay, so the next...
So, as I say, I've reached out to our expert who has worked for a very similar airline, who is currently in Dubai. I've sent him a message, and he's reading the story at the moment, so we may come back to that later if we get any comment.
So moving on to the next story, Nev, this one is a special one chosen just by yourself.
Oh yes, I'm looking forward to this. This is on the aviationfigures.com, another triumph of aviation reporting.
Oh dear.
This one's brilliant.
British Airways kicks 20 passengers off holiday flight because the 35 degrees centigrade heat wave made the plane too heavy. British Airways booted 20 passengers off one flight from London City Airport because the hot weather made the plane too heavy. The airline said that the blistering 35 degrees heat on the affected... that's a terrible piece of writing again. I'll start again. The airline said that the blistering 35 degrees heat affected the air pressure, meaning aircraft could not take off unless they shed weight. London City Airport's short runway means that jets have to take off at a steeper angle than at most other airports. Passengers told of their fury as they were told that they wouldn't be going off on their holidays on the busiest day of the year for air travel. Travellers were asked to leave 14 flights, but one plane bound for Ibiza saw 20 travellers bumped off shortly before boarding on Friday. The Hopkins family were on their way to visit relatives when they were told that they wouldn't be allowed on the plane. Mom of three told the Sun online her daughter Chloe, who suffers from Down syndrome, had been counting down the days to see her granny and was heartbroken when they were booted off the flight. Her husband Tom and their kids, 14 and 12 and 10, were jetting out to scatter her father's ashes on the Balearic Island. The 43-year-old fashion buyer from West London said, "We were lining up, having been told to get to the gate when they asked if anybody wants to be bumped off the flight. Nobody came forward, and then they said they were going to have to pick 14 people because it's so hot and we need to carry more petrol in order to take
I beg your pardon.
I didn't know that was the fuel of choice for the Embraer E190.
Oh no!
Anyway, we're not going to go on about that.
We really should.
I'd like to say about this.
Oh God, please, Nev.
Is there Nev?
Only two.
I can't imagine why.
But there are two very important things. Firstly, of course, we always like to see a picture of roughly the aircraft involved at London City. And we see a picture of a Boeing 747-400. Now, those planes can be quite light without any fuel or passengers or seats.
With any petrol,
but it's not going to get airborne off of London City Airport's runway.
Maybe with petrol they would.
Maybe that's where they're going wrong, yes.
Perhaps it's that high-octane 5-star we used to buy back in the 1970s.
Yes.
For those who can remember.
Yes.
But actually, what I decided to do, because I thought, as I'm just a bit of an amateur chap, I thought I'd ask a bit of a pro here. So I couldn't find any, but I spoke to Pilot Pip instead.
Right.
Who does operate out of London City Airport. And he says that the climb gradient on most of the departures from City is around 8%, which is based on a single engine operation. So if you have an engine failure, the obstacles around the Docklands area are not actually that much of an issue, since all the departures from 27 to north before then. If an aircraft can't make the minimum climb gradient, then it's up to the operator to come up with a special procedure. And for us, the special is to turn right at 1.3 nautical miles and head east, which is almost identical to the start of the published departures anyway. The real issues at City are A, the runway length, and B, noise abatement, one of the reasons for the steep climb gradient. And with regard to this story, I'm not really clear as to what limitation they were having an issue with, but by reducing the weight by losing passengers or fuel is fine. But the quote in the article says that they kicked off more passengers to take more fuel, so in fact no more weight reduction. So that does suggest maybe they had overfueled or had to file the flight at a lower level, which would require more fuel. So it could be a number of things really there. So again, reading this article, you don't really get the full story, but I think it is one of the best articles I've seen with regard to aviation inaccuracies, should we say.
Right, yes. Right up your street, as it were, Sir Nev.
Well, as I said before, I was thinking of doing a bit of a segment on this whole thing, but the trouble is it would take up the whole show. We wouldn't have enough time for any other stories. So.
Good point, well made. Who knows?
What do you think of all the...
I've certainly been on flights. I remember one in particular. It was a Friday night coming back home from Las Vegas and was asked to deplane because of a weight issue. And... sure, I was upset over it and would have liked to have gotten home on time, but would I have rather been on the plane and had it crash because it was overweight? I don't think so. I'm saying that they were booted off. They were just denied boarding or asked to leave for safety, which seems completely reasonable to me.
Yes, exactly.
I think it's all in the headline, really. It's like kicks off 20 passengers, but you could rewrite that headline and say British Airways are a sensible airline and make sure their planes take off the ground and fly safely.
Yes,
there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
I'm going to try and get some of that aviation petrol for my car.
Sounds
yes,
good.
I think. Absolutely.
Sounds the right stuff to me.
I wonder what kind of miles to the gallon you might get out of said special fuel, Nev.
Yes, about 3.
Right, yes.
You have picked a really good site here, Nev, and I just noticed whilst you were talking about that story and we were laughing away, I've noticed that this website that we're on is a bit of a site for this kind of faux pas, because one of the stories that they've got on the right hand side of this particular page we're on is about the terrifying moment the A380 drifts all over the runway as it struggles to land in a 20-mile-an-hour crosswind. I said 20, not 20 mile an hour.
Right, not 70.
Okay, right. And I was actually just looking, as you do, to see what the maximum crosswind limits are for an A380 crosswind landing, and they are actually 46 miles per hour, which is 40 knots.
Yes.
And
wow!
Apparently, this particular 380 was struggling in 20 miles per hour.
I think this story, we did cover it before, didn't we? Just a little bit too over-enthusiastic with the application of rudder. So it was swinging around a little bit after he touched down.
But great story, though, Nev. Well done.
Oh, yes. But, hardly exactly a life-changing moment, I think.
Anyway,
no,
that was
indeed.
good. I enjoyed that.
Lovely.
Good to get that finished off.
It's good to talk, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to talk.
Right, so next then, Brian, the next story is one all especially for you.
Oh, so all the passengers that got kicked off the plane had to camp overnight, as reported in The Sun.
That's it. That's the one.
Actually, is The Sun a reputable?
Very.
Yes, why not?
Especially the third page.
Think about it.
Some groans there. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, they say passengers camp in morgue-like makeshift beds overnight after airline strands them. Huh. Imagine who this airline could be, since I'm reading the story. United Airlines failed to put travelers up in hotel overnight after they were stranded in Chicago due to technical issues with a plane. I guess it's good that it wasn't technical issues with something else.
Well,
so
indeed.
Blaming on the plane. When Liz Smith went aboard her flight at a busy U.S. airport, she never expected the series of events that would culminate in her taking these photos. At first glance, one could be forgiven for thinking this is a scene from a morgue. Are you guys showing the
I'm working on it.
morgue-like
Give me a
photos?
moment. Yes, there we go. Pictures are there.
Yeah, having everyone all lined up. But the bizarre image actually shows stranded passengers camped out at Chicago O'Hare International Airport. Shortly after midnight, 2 plane loads of United Airlines passengers were told their flights, including one to Portland International Jetport, would be delayed until the morning following a series of mechanical incidents. Despite delays up to 12 hours, the airline refused to put them up in hotels and told them everything is closed now. Instead, in a move labeled cruel and unusual, they offered the travelers, including the elderly, disabled, and small children, cramped beds and blankets that were set up in the halls of the airport. And then blah, 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 blah. Somewhere the article goes on to say, this is a long article and I'm not going to read the whole thing. They go on to say that at 4 a.m, the airport security came through and woke everyone and removed the cots and blankets. So
Nice.
I just want to point out, United didn't do that. It was the airport security that did that. So United really had no control at that point.
Yeah, but that would sort of take the sting out of her story, though, surely, if she was to listen to reason and common sense. I mean, it's a difficult situation, isn't it? I mean, I suppose there is only a finite amount of beds that are available, when
especially if it's if it's a large wide-body aircraft. And you've got 300 and something people all wanting a hotel at one time. It's going to be a bit of an issue.
It is.
So there's so much information that's not in this story. So one of them is really the I wanted to say incompetence, but that's not the right word. Is it that the gate agents, their hands were tied in handing out hotel vouchers, or was the city actually booked? And around Chicago O'Hare, if anyone's been there are loads and loads of hotels around. So I find it hard to believe, without a severe weather event, that all the hotels would be full. And I have been there in the wintertime when it snows, and that has happened. Or you have to go really far away in order to stay. But this doesn't sound like the weather was all that bad, and the flights were canceled due to mechanical. So I think there are probably hotels around. So it makes me wonder why they weren't issued hotel vouchers, because it was a mechanical. Now, if it was weather, then the airline's not responsible for putting them up in hotels, and that's okay. Having my super Uber United status, I don't have to worry about that, because they will pay for a hotel for me if it's mechanical or weather. So that's nice, and one of the reasons why I continue to fly with United. However, things like people complaining that food vouchers weren't given out. And again, I could kind of understand, but at midnight, all of the restaurants at the airport are closed, so giving out a voucher becomes worthless.
Pointless,
if you can't spend it anywhere. Now, should the airline have canceled the flight sooner? Probably, but on the other hand, I think they were trying to get people out. And had they been able to resolve the mechanical issue, everyone would have been flying that night. Although late, they still would have been on the aircraft. So I don't know. I just don't think that it's as bad for United as the way this article is written. But maybe I'm just being...
In their defence, the Coleman camp bed is an incredibly comfy bed to sleep on.
Oh, they are. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I did that once when I was 5 or 6 years old, and I think swore I would never do it again. So, yeah. They're not comfy at all.
Oh dear. Well, it's safe to say that that's a good story for United, as always, because we know you love United.
But Carlos, actually, the good news is I only had 4 hours to spend in the bed, so it really wasn't that terrible. Right? Had they let them sleep till 8 in the morning, that would have been cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah. Good point. Well made.
So, moving on to the next story, Mila. This one's for you.
Thank you. This one's from the independent.co.uk, and it reads, Jet2 passengers threaten to boycott airline for an unusual reason. Passengers are threatening to boycott airline Jet2 because of the song it chooses to play on board. The budget airline Jet2 plays Hold My Hand by Jazz Glynne, both on the plane and when passengers are waiting to board. On repeat. But it seems passengers have now grown sick of the tune, with various travelers taking to social media to vent their frustration. So Philly Bryan posts on Twitter, I flew Jet2 this week. They make you listen to Hold My Hand by Jazz Glynne about 10 times on every flight. I'll walk to Portugal next time. And Mackenzie CFC says, worst thing about flying with Jet2 is the endless sound of Jazz Glynne's voice. And Ross Goodfellow says, why do Jet2 find it acceptable to play Jazz Glynne Hold My Hand over and over? Jet2 has used Glynne's hit for its campaign since 2016, playing the song extensively on its aircraft. According to frustrated flyers, it's most annoying when delays force planes to sit on the runway for hours with the passengers on board waiting to take off. Nat Carson says, I forgot to mention I flew Jet 2 and they played Jazz Klein 8.5 times before we even took off, and I honestly wanted to die. Jet 2 replies though, hi Izzy, we're sorry to hear that you're not a fan of the song and we'll be sure to pass this on to the team. We find Jazz Klein gets us in the holiday spirit. For the smiley face behind that.
Now, I don't know if so I've found the video as you were probably talking about. I don't.
Don't play it.
I don't know if it's
on repeat for the rest of the show.
There you go. Just so we all know what they're talking about. There we go. So I can't play any more than that because obviously I'll get a warning. Oh no, it's not stopping. Stop! Sorry. I can get it to stop. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's good. But yeah, so that's the song that they're going on about basically.
But here, just to round the story up, it says it appears the airline has no plans to reduce how much it plays the 2015 hit. A spokesperson for the company said, "Hold My Hand concept is very popular with our customers, and we receive a huge amount of positive feedback about both the advert and the song." So apparently they're very happy with it.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's good one person is.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I love the song, but that's because it's on the Radio 2 playlist, and that's why I love it, frankly. But there we are.
Imagine working for them, though. Imagine hearing it all the time, not just when you're flying with it. That must be work.
It would be like the old Ryanair thing, you know, that whenever they used to have an on-time landing, and they used to
I don't know what you're talking about.
I was just about to mention that.
The fanfare was awesome.
Another on-time landing.
Yeah, you see, some people are just so very ungrateful. Anyway, just as a very quick side, before we move on to the next story, some of your more eagle-eyed viewers may well have noticed that we've been joined by an additional person who hopefully is going to take his mic off mute now, it gives me great pleasure to say hello, Eoin.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
We can indeed. Yeah, absolutely.
Loud and clear.
Oh my goodness, it works. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm very
surprised to see that it works. Audio only, I'm afraid, for today.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
But I think that might be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Eoin, earlier on, we covered a story regarding a low-cost airline in the UK here, and obviously, as cabin crew yourself, you know all about the training procedures, what should happen, what shouldn't happen, and Matt sent you the link. You've had a little look at the links in the video. What is your view on what should and should not have happened?
Yeah, so I've been briefed on the story, and I've seen it in the media as well. To be honest with you, it's hard to say without seeing the airline's point of view on this and what actually happened in the cabin. But in terms of whether we have procedures or something for that sort of scenario where we have an electrical fire or a portable electronic device which explodes, there is actually a procedure for that. So I was personally quite surprised to see that there was an evacuation, especially seeing as there are very structured drills in place in most airlines to cope with that particular scenario. The ins and outs of the situation we don't really know, so it could have been in somewhere that possibly could have affected some other system, and possibly the pilots made a call to evacuate as opposed to the cabin crew, or perhaps the other way around. Perhaps the cabin crew made a decision because they found that there was some part of the aircraft that was structurally compromised. To be honest with you, I'm not too sure which is the case, but definitely there are procedures in place for that, and they're very, very set procedures in place. So I say there is some part of that news item that we're just not hearing, that just hasn't been released. And yeah, again, people taking their bags off the aircraft.
Yes,
really frustrating.
Yeah. No, I mean, because the thing that really hit me home, which is, to be honest with you, I know because you're very busy at the moment, and I'm sorry that we sort of reached out to you, but it was the thing that really concerned us all about this particular story, or me especially, was just basically that they were literally piling off the aeroplane.
Yeah,
that really concerned me. Do you know what I mean? I was sort of under the impression that it would be sort of, you would literally be releasing them kind of like one at a time, so you'd have one at the bottom and one at the top, sort of...
Yeah, to be honest with you, the priority is not to keep... is to get everyone away from the aircraft as fast as possible. And if that's by piling up and forcing people off, that's what has to happen. If there's a situation going on inside the aircraft, then outside is safer, and that's just what has to happen. Yeah. The way it was handled on the ground, you saw there was a person there who was in a high-vis vest in the video. For those of you who could see it, there's a person who was kind of helping the people off the aircraft. I know at Harpjet there is procedures in place for taking people off the slides and for people to guide, but there is only so much that you can do to encourage people to move faster, and in some cases, people might have already been injured by the time that they get off. Remember, evacuating an aircraft is something that will sustain injuries. That's just fact, and I think Al has touched on that a few times before. Yeah. Certainly not only on this podcast, but on the plane safety podcast as well. The evacuations they cause injuries, but they cause less injuries than if you keep people on board, and that's kind of why they're done. It's just to save lives. Mm-hmm. But
what about the fact of people taking their suitcases down? As the flight attendant standing at the door, can you tell them to leave it? But I can imagine that creating a problem as well, where the galley might fill up extremely fast with bags. So really, it seems like you're in a difficult position at that point.
The very difficult position is that when they have them at the door, the priority is to get the person on the door or out the door, whether they're with their bags or not. And if you start leaving things behind in the cabin, you take more time to explain to them leave it behind than you do to push them out the door. Right. So that's the problem there. The bigger problem is not so much that they have the bags when they get off the aircraft. The bigger problem is when you're in the cabin and when you're trying to get out of your seats. That's where having a bag causes problems, because we've all been in the situation where you've been carrying a bag and it's got caught on the armrest, or the suitcase is just slightly too wide to fit through the aisle or whatever it is, and it's those sort of problems. So actually, once they're at the door, it doesn't really matter. So for me, that would be get everybody off the aircraft, bag or no bag. But it's the part in the middle of the aircraft where the cabin crew are not there to lock the happens. That's the frustrating part, because that's the part that we need to get people off. That's the part that creates the most delay as well, is actually trying to get people in and out of seats.
Owen, Mike has just asked a very good question here in the chat room, actually. Owen, how do you feel about prosecuting people who take bags during an evacuation?
Yeah, I think that would be a fantastic idea. And possibly it might create some issues in terms of governments wanting to prosecute people or not wanting to prosecute people. But definitely, the airline has all the information of every single one of those people who are on the ground or who are on the aircraft, and they're obviously going to be trying to account for those people as well. So they'll be able to see whether they have bags or not. And I think a great way to be would just to blacklist them from flying. Plain and simple. It's possibly not the prosecution that Micah is talking about, but in terms of a penalty, I think that's a very severe penalty, especially in this day and age when the world has become so small just because of air travel. Yeah. But I think blacklisting off an airline or just air travel in general is possibly the best way that could be implemented, in my opinion. Indeed. Other people might be able to.
Richard Adams in the chat room has actually suggested maybe cabin crew need an emergency cattle prod, perhaps, to assist in the evacuation and everyone behaving. Anyway, we've covered this story enough, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Owen.
Owen, thanks, because we were sort of just a bit desperate for sort of some expert comment, really. So we'll let you get back to your evening now. So thanks for dropping in.
No, I'm actually free to stay on. It's late late evening and the pool is closed in my building.
Oh, dear. All right.
Oh, no, really, Owen, I think Matt was saying it's time for you to go.
Yeah, go on. Go on, bugger off.
Goodbye.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially after that. We don't need to know about you sat by a swimming pool. That's just rude. Anyway.
So moving on to the next story then. David, our guest here in the garden studio, it's all yours.
Yeah, still dry in the garden studio, I'm glad to report as well. Yeah.
We haven't had to rush inside yet.
So this story is from themarketplace.org, and the headline reads, Airline pilots, is there an actual shortage, or are employers not paying enough? How many pilots do you need up there in the friendly skies? Boeing recently projected that the airline industry will need almost 800,000 pilots over the next 20 years. That's about double the current workforce. The problem is, though, that airlines are already facing something of a pilot shortage. One solution is to train more pilots, another is to decrease the need for pilots.
Ooh.
Typically 3 or 4 pilots are needed for a long-haul flight, but Airbus and Thales, a company that makes cockpit technology, think automation could reduce that number within the next 5 years. Seth Kaplan, managing partner at Airline Weekly, joined us, which is the website here, to discuss the current state of the airline labour force. Below is an edited transcript of the interview. So the first question asked was, we hear a lot about pilot shortage. What's going on? Well, first you had this wave of retirements. A whole lot of pilots who came into the workforce after the Vietnam War were kind of all forced to retire at once, because you're not allowed to be a commercial pilot once you turn 65. On top of that, airlines around the world were growing and there was more demand for pilots. Then, in America, the rules changed. It became a lot harder to become a pilot. You need a whole lot more hours of practice time, basically, so it's more expensive. That means not as many people can become pilots. And when they become a pilot, they expect to earn a lot more than those minimum wages that we used to hear pilots earned from some of the smaller airlines. That's not what they're earning anymore. So all of that gets airlines say there is a big shortage. The pilot unions, by the way, say there is no shortage. They say, hey, just pay more and you'll have the pilots you need. So turning to automation, how would this work? Are we talking about planes without pilots? Well, maybe someday in the future. Decades off was the answer. For now, what manufacturers are talking about is maybe having one few pilot on the flight. Nowadays, you need 2 pilots in the cockpit, but that means you might need to have 3 or 4 on board when somebody takes a break. What they're talking about is getting it to where a cruise altitude on a long flight, you might only need 1 pilot in the cockpit, and then you might only need 1 to carry, say, 2 on board on an 8 or 12-hour flight, rather than the 3 pilots they currently use. And there's disagreement about the answer to that question, as we know. So, are there any safety concerns here? Well, pilot unions, as you'd think, have said absolutely that there is a safety concern. Now look, of course they're also concerned about employment for pilots, but they say you want 2 pilots up there because what happens if something happens to one of the pilots? On the other hand, cockpits used to have 3 pilots in them all the time, and now almost all of them only need 2 pilots in the cockpit. And of course, flying is generally safer than it has ever been. So one way to look at it is that the flight has become more automated, and as not as many pilots are required, flying has become far safer. So the reduction so far in pilots hasn't made things less safe, but pilot unions say, hey, there's a big difference between dropping from 2 to 3 than dropping from 2 to 1.
Pilot shortage, with the costs and stuff involved, David, obviously you would be the first person to ask about this.
I think it's a difficult thing to kind of put a figure on at the moment, but what you can see happening, especially in America, and it's now coming across to Europe, is that the airlines are making training packages more attractive, I'd say. They're certainly trying to make it more accessible. I don't think they've got to the point they'll need to get to, but there's certainly efforts that they are making to try and reduce the costs, or maybe spread the costs in some way. But in the way of automation, I think we will get to the point where we'll all be 1 pilot. I think we've gone from 3 to 2, as it said, but I think we're a long way off. That point with automation and everything, but
Nev,
I think it will come eventually.
Nev, how do you? I'll throw this to Nev first, but obviously Brian as well. Really, how do you feel about sort of them basically just having 1 officer in the cabin? How do you feel about 1 person being in charge and flying, in the flight deck on his own?
I'm pleased to say I don't think that's going to happen in my lifetime.
Right.
And there have been so many occasions now where it's shown that 2 people in the cockpit is a safer option. And as good as the automation is, as good as the electronics are, as good as the autopilot is, things go wrong, and it takes 2 sets of eyes and 2 brains to problem solve in some situations, not all of them, of course. So I still think we're going to see 2 people in the cockpit for the foreseeable future, and I'm glad that we are.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, we talk about this every once in a while on the Airplane Geeks podcast, and David and I have gotten into a discussion or 2 over it where he's saying, oh, well, military's been flying single pilot for a long time. And I said, yeah, that's fine, but they're not carrying 300 passengers in their plane, or even if it's 12 passengers, I really don't care. They're not general public passengers. And just the other day, there was a story, or maybe it was earlier today, where a cargo plane, single pilot cargo plane had crashed, and quite possibly had there been a second pilot in the plane, they would have noticed whatever the issue was and corrected it and kept that plane from crashing. No, I think it's a really bad idea to have single pilot operations, at least in my lifetime. One of the things that this story drove me crazy about is they talked about having 3 pilots in an aircraft, and thinking back to 727 days or DC-10, L-1011s, oftentimes that third pilot wasn't a pilot, they were an engineer. And sometimes they were able to fly the plane, but many times they weren't. It was a non-flying position. And I think Captain Jeff has talked about that on his show as well. So going from 3 to 2 isn't necessarily accurate. For long-haul flights, depending on the long-haul flight, there can be 3, sometimes 4 pilots on the plane, depending on the duration of the flight. Brian. I also think that it's very easy to say that increasing the pay isn't going to produce pilots, in that it still takes time to build this proficiency and competency of that skill, being a pilot. So yeah, if you raise it from their terrible food stamp wage that they were being paid to a decent, reasonable living wage, there's still a lag time until you get trained pilots into those positions. So pay isn't going to immediately solve this problem.
No. Mila, I mean, the thought of sort of like single pilots and stuff, I mean, Nev is sort of saying he thinks that's not going to happen in his lifetime, or indeed ours, probably. But I mean, how would you feel as a, because I mean, obviously GA pilots are sort of flying on their own all the time. I mean, how would you feel essentially about flying some of these larger aircraft? Let's use the 737-800 as an example. How would you feel about flying one of those on your own with passengers on board?
Well, the thing is, there's part of it is human nature. We are notoriously bad multitaskers. Yeah. Even though everybody says, "Oh, I'm so good at multitasking."
Yeah, no, but of course, for ladies, obviously they are very good at multitasking. I mean, that's been proven on numerous occasions. So it's only us men that are useless at it.
Oh yeah. No, but we are bad at multitasking, and the big aircraft, they have so many processes going on at the same time. You need to keep your positional awareness, your situational awareness. You need to communicate. You need to keep track of all the systems. You need to do failure management. All those tasks. If you do them at once, you're gonna end up behind the aircraft. So, and also combined with the fact that the design of big aircraft is focused on having 2 pilots in there. One solving the problem and one flying the aircraft.
Actually flying, yeah.
It wouldn't be good if you would ask one person to do it by themselves.
No, fair point.
Can I just quickly ask Brian while he's here? That, I don't know if you know the answer, Brian, but I remember not so long ago the FAA may have passed the reauthorization bill that they are going to test with single operations for cargo operations. Is that correct, or has that gone through or not?
I don't know the current status of it. I'd have to rely on the Googles for that.
Indeed. Actually, let's take advantage of the fact that we do have access to cabin crew here. I mean, Eoin, presumably from your point of view, does having essentially only one person flying the airplane, I presume that has very little impact on your role in the cabin?
Potentially, yeah. It wouldn't really see too much difference from our side. But one point that I'd like to touch on is something that came about as well, possibly it was there before in some airlines, but definitely in some of the European carriers after the Germanwings incident in 2014. Am I right in saying? 2014, 2015.
Is this the one where he flew it into the air, into the mountain or something?
That would be the one, yeah. It's a really unfortunate thing that happened, but because of that, many airlines that didn't already have this in their operating procedures designated that should one pilot need to leave the cockpit to go to the toilet or to get food or whatever it may be, that somebody else would and a crew member would be in there with in the cockpit with the other operating pilot. The thing that would scare me is that if that was to happen in a situation with a single pilot, the person in the flight deck, if it was a member of cabin crew, except for a very, very small minority of cabin crew, would not have any sort of experience or any sort of training in how to deal with any sort of situation that would arise on the flight deck. And possibly you run into the same situation again. Even if you had two cabin crew go in there with each other, you still run the same sort of risks as you did with the Germanwings incident. So I think from a security point of view, that definitely is something that shouldn't be changed. That there definitely should be two people in the cockpit.
Actually, there's some quite good chat going on in the chat room. Some
quite good chat going on in the chat room.
Quite good chat going on in the chat room.
I can see Nev sighing already. He's shaking his head in horror.
Yeah. I'm trying to multitask here, and it's not going very well. Yeah. But Barbara's saying that it will be reliable enough to be cost effective. Talking about obviously the money kind of thing in pilots and airlines and stuff. Saving money would not be. It's not really the answer, I think, to this kind of thing. It says here, Neil says in the chat room, Neil Lamore says you won't see single pilot passenger airliners until long after single pilot cargo carriers. Scrolling up here because Captain Jeff's in the chat room actually somewhere. I did notice a comment earlier from Captain Jeff, but
Mariano's saying that Tony, in reply to the comment Tony was making, was basically they'd already halved pilot salaries here in the US. He's saying, I mean, it's the pilots themselves can't really do much more, I guess, in regards to keeping that going. Anyway, I think we should probably move on because we're going to run out of time rapidly, and we have people we want to talk to.
I think it's safe to say we're all quite happy as things are.
Yes, absolutely.
Don't mess with things.
2 if not 3 pilots, please.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Bring back
the more
TriStar,
redundancy in that cockpit, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
So the next story is on another awesome website that we all know and love. It's the aviationherald.com. And if you don't know about that site, you should do. It's awesome. So it's an accident that happened actually earlier on this week, and it's the Aeromexico Connect E190 at Durango. And that was on the 31st of July. That one veered off the runway and overran. And there was a few videos and stuff which have been on social media, including YouTube, of this, which make interesting watching. But apparently, according to the report, the Aeromexico Connect Embraer ERJ190, performing a flight from Durango, Mexico, with 99 passengers and 4 crew, rejected a takeoff from runway 03 in adverse weather, veered off the runway, overran the end of the runway, and then burst into flames. The aircraft was destroyed, but there were no fatalities. 2 people received serious injuries. 83 people received minor injuries. And apparently, literally just moments after the accident itself, there are already occupants giving TV interviews within 2 hours of the actual accident happening. But like I said, the local governor subsequently reported that there obviously were no fatalities of the 101 occupants. And Mexico's DGAC reported an investigation commission had been formed. And they also said that the runway inspection in driving in the opposite direction of runway 03 from runway end to runway threshold showed both engines off to the left-hand side of runway 03. These obviously been sheared off during the accident. Ground observers report the aircraft suffered an engine or a failure at about V1 speed, and then proceeded to veer off the runway and come to a halt just off the runway, passed off to the left-hand side. Passengers reported the aircraft was accelerating for takeoff but did not succeed to become airborne. Once the aircraft came to a stop, it took about 3 to 4 minutes until the aircraft burst into flames, enabling all the occupants to evacuate the aircraft safely. Other passengers report the aircraft was hit by lightning, possibly. So the latest news on that then, which is on the website as well, just says that on the 2nd of August, this was yesterday, the hospital treating the captain of the flight reported that he was in a slightly bad way. He's got a slight injury to the spine, but he's still able to move his arms and leg, which is always brilliant to see these see these flight crew recovering from their injuries so quickly after the accident. But there are a few injuries to various passengers, which include burns as well, and around about 8 people still remain in hospital care up to this current time. So obviously the videos you saw playing there on YouTube, one of the other videos that they actually showed on the Aviation Herald was actually of a webcam of the storm sort of coming through across the city itself, which makes for interesting reading. But any comments, Nev? I know you followed this one.
Yes, well, I obviously don't know any more than anybody else does, but it certainly looks to me as though there was some sort of microburst directly ahead of them, and that obviously can result in massive amounts of downdraft and loss of airspeed. So I think that the plane didn't appear to pitch up very much. It was a very flat attitude. I don't know if you saw it. I think it did get airborne slightly, but I think there was just probably a massive loss of airspeed, and it's only got to be 10 knots or so, something like that, if you're not at a flying speed for the aircraft, and you lose all the lift from the wing. So I think it was weather related, but I think there was also possibly some takeoff performance miscalculation as well.
Mila, would you say you definitely wouldn't want to take off in this kind of weather?
I missed a bit of it because of technical stuff going on, but yeah, well, I'm sorry, I don't know.
No, fair point.
Fair point.
Yeah, it's.
David, I mean, is that for your flying?
Yeah, the weather report. They've got the weather reports on the bottom of the Av Herald website here, and they said it was thunderstorms, rain, broken cumulonimbus clouds, and that seems to be pretty consistent. And also the wind reports here were changing quite dramatically. The wind was changing direction, so I think Nev might have been quite right that it was a microburst ahead. And could have been wind. Oh, who knows what it could have been, but could have been something to do with the wind shear. But I think with the weather forecast they've shown there, it's got to be something to do with that weather, certainly weather related. For the outcome that they obviously experienced, but who knows really until the reports are carried out.
Are officially carried out. Yes, well, let's watch this space. I suppose we'll see what comes of it. So we're going to move on to the next story. This is on the ITV.com.
This
website.
is a nice story.
It is. It makes a change, doesn't it? We've been
who
tackling
sent this story in?
I don't know who sent this story.
Pilot Pip.
Oh, did he? Oh, right. ITV.com is the website. The headline, I'm a little bit nervous if it's been sent to us by Pilot Pip. Anyway, new aviation badge for brownies unveiled in partnership with EasyJet. So a new aviation badge for brownies has been unveiled as part of a campaign to encourage more girls to become pilots. To earn the award, brownies will have to carry out aeronautical experiments using different materials and launch techniques, as well as name 40 things that fly. Tens of thousands of brownies, girls aged between 7 to 10 are... do you know that... Sorry, I'm reading this story here, and one thing that really annoys me when it comes to stories is like either use words or numbers when you are saying 7 to 10. Don't write girls aged 7 and then spell it SEVEN and then go 7 to 10 and then put the number 10 are expected to take part in activities in the first year of the new badge. It has been introduced in partnership with EasyJet, which wants 20% of its new entrant pilots to be female by 2020. Women make up around 3% of commercial airline pilots worldwide. EasyJet captain Marnie Munns, the lead pilot for the airline's Amy Johnson Flying Initiative, said, "We have always believed in the importance of female role models to encourage girls to see a pilot career as a real option available to them, which is why we're really excited to be unveiling the new aviation badge for brownies as part of our partnership with Girl Guiding. Together we will engage with even more young people to inspire and educate them about aviation and becoming a pilot." A survey of 556 pilots, that's a very specific number, commissioned by EasyJet, found that the desire to become a pilot typically happens much later for girls than it does for boys. The majority of male pilots, 55%, knew that they wanted to do the job by the time they were 10 years old, whereas almost half of female pilots, 44%, did not consider the role until they were over 16. So, David, when did you want to be a pilot?
When I was 4. But unfortunately, I think we need to say there at the brownies for the American listeners or anything, just in case this might sound really strange.
Yeah.
It's like
no, they're not good with the custard.
No, kind of like a girl group, bit like Scouts. I don't know what the American equivalent would be, where you get different badges for doing different activities.
Brian, have you heard of the brownies?
Yeah, it's the female equivalent of the Boy Scouts or
in
this particular case. So yes, in England, do you have the Boy Scouts?
Yeah, absolutely, So Mila, obviously, because we've got a female pilot here as well.
Hey.
When did you want to be? When did you know that you wanted to be a pilot? Does that sort of fit with the figures?
I was 9. So yes, later than 4, but
only a few years ago then.
Yeah, stop it.
Yeah, for me it was,
he's so smooth,
I was
isn't
9
he?
and my dad took me on a flight to Scotland.
Oh wow!
And I got to meet the pilots and see the cockpit, and then I thought, oh, maybe one day, who knows?
Yeah. See, this is very cool. Yeah. So all right. So maybe our little very brief straw poll of merely 2 people has not necessarily followed figures correctly, but nevertheless, it does highlight that the girls tend to be one to pilots.
I have to say, I think they could have done something a bit better with the badge. The badge is a bit.
Oh, have we got a picture of the badge?
Yeah,
is that
on
what
that
this
story,
is?
yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm on it. Hang on. Give me a minute.
A bit boring, isn't it, David?
Yeah, Matt. One of the things though about encouraging women or the role model, and for another shameless self-promotion with the Airplane Geeks, we try really hard to get women guests on the show because I really think introducing people that are successful in a career encourages others and inspires others to do that. And as Milo just said, she was inspired at an early age because she actually got to see and meet a pilot. And we try really hard to get female representatives in the aviation industry on, it's really for that reason. And I don't know. I think it's really important, and having the rate be so low, I think is still pathetic. And there's so much more work that needs to be done.
Yeah, I couldn't.
But
agree more.
on that point, kudos to EasyJet for coming out with these initiatives. EasyJet themselves have the, I believe it's the Amy Johnson Flying Scholarship for cadets that want to join with EasyJet. For female cadets that want to join with EasyJet. So really, well done to EasyJet for all of the work that they're doing to bring women into aviation. It's a really positive change for the industry, and they're definitely an industry leader for doing that.
I think the idea is start young, then we won't have this pilot shortage.
Good point.
Because at least when they're kind of 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, they've got time to save up the 100 and something odd £1,000, David, for doing it. Yeah, at least. So next story then, Nev, is a very sad story, I think, for BA.
It is a bit, because I quite like the Boeing 767, I must say, especially on short haul routes. And I've flown it a lot as a passenger, obviously, to Glasgow and Edinburgh and Amsterdam, and to Stockholm in the past as well. And BA have announced that it's planning to end operations with its 767-300 aircraft in the last quarter of this year. And the carrier's been operating the 767 for 28 years and currently has 5 remaining aircraft in its fleet, with an additional aircraft being operated in its open skies fleet. While the aircraft has been primarily used on short-haul European routes to destinations such as Amsterdam, Rome, Istanbul and Stockholm, the carrier has also operated the aircraft on domestic services within the United Kingdom. The carrier's 767 aircraft were operated in a 2-class configuration, with BA's signature Club Europe and Euro Traveller cabins seating 244 passengers. As well as that, BA also operated the similar yet smaller 757-200 aircraft for some time, until the aircraft was retired in 2010 and transitioned to British Airways subsidiary Open Skies in a private jet configuration. Over the years, many airlines have slowly started to retire many of their 767s, including American, United and Delta. While the 767s have served as somewhat of a workhorse for these airlines, the lack of modern amenities within the aircraft and the introduction of newer, more fuel-efficient jets has caused airlines to re-evaluate their operation. In BA's case, the carrier has started to introduce aircraft such as the 777-300ER, the 787-8 and the Airbus A320neo to take over some of the routes that were previously operated by the Boeing 767. The fate of the soon-to-be retired Boeing 767s is unknown, a British Airways spokesman told Air Transport World. Now, just before I actually comment on the story, could I just say there's some poor journalism again? I know I hate myself for even saying it, but could you just bear with me a second? The first paragraph says as follows: British Airways has announced that it is planning to end operations with its Boeing 767-300 aircraft in Q4 2018. So that's great. The last paragraph says the fate of the soon-to-be retired Boeing 767 is currently unknown, a British Airways spokesman told Air Transport World. So which is it?
Right. So it's a nonsense story, essentially. Nev.
Right.
Yes.
Well, we all know it is going to be phased out.
Absolutely.
I did love the aircraft. The interior was looking a bit unloved in the latter days of its operation, certainly. But of course, it's such a versatile aircraft because they were using it on the short-haul sectors, the high-density routes, but also perfectly capable of going all the way to San Francisco, probably from London if you wanted to too. So very long-range aircraft too.
Well, we all know my thoughts on the 767, so I think we should move on.
Or was it the 75?
No, it's the 757.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was the 75 that tried to kill me.
The interesting thing about the 767, I'm kind of sad to see it go, although it is a fairly old aircraft now. American Airlines was flying the 767 from Los Angeles to JFK, and they recently swapped it out with the A321, I believe, and passengers were complaining that they perceived the flight to be not as smooth as the 767. And talking with some people about it, they said absolutely that's correct. The wing spar and where the wing actually joins the aircraft is a different type of technology, and the Airbus is indeed a much stiffer aircraft than the 767. So passengers notice the comfort of the 767. So again, kind of sad to see it make the way of the 747 and just go off into retirement.
Actually, before we move on to the next story, Nev, I was just checking up on the fleet, the current fleet with BA 76s, and they're averaging about 25 years old.
Yes,
76s,
and
so.
they actually have given the airline really good service over the years. I think the maintenance has been really good on these aircraft. The dispatch reliability and the in-service reliability has been very good, and it's a very popular twin-aisle machine. But as I say, because BA really haven't been able to do too much to the interiors recently, I don't think. If you get on one today, it does look a little bit. Does feel a bit 1980s in there, but nonetheless, I'm sure they've paid for them long ago, and even with the less fuel-efficient engines that they're running, they're probably not expensive to operate.
No, true.
Well, hopefully the 787 can up its dispatch reliability and then prove to be a nice kind of continuation for that.
When it's got some engines on it, certainly.
Yeah.
Oh, Nev, always with the trump card, honestly.
Oh, don't mention that word here. Anyway.
Right. Sorry.
So,
blaspheme.
Brian. The next story is a special one for you.
From consumeraffairs.com.
And it's good news if you're an American Airlines passenger.
Yeah, absolutely. American Airlines to allow one free carry-on bag on flights.
Woo! Wow.
Yeah. Yay.
No, that's
now the
American
whole
Airlines.
thing with the basic economy where they're saying no carry-on bags whatsoever. I guess Delta made the first move, and now American is following suit, and United nowhere in sight of a policy change on this. But getting to the story. Enough of the commentary. Starting September 5th, 2018, American Airlines will permit its lowest fare class passengers to bring aboard a free carry-on bag in addition to the currently allowable personal item. Passengers booked in American's basic economy will have to pay his standard fee, $25 domestic, $60 transatlantic. Wonder about the Pacific flights. To check a bag, and they'll board in the last group, but saving anything in today's travel environment is welcome change, especially when airlines threaten to raise fares to offset rising fuel costs. With this move, American joins Delta in allowing a carry-on bag as part of its basic economy fare. Yet, American has a lot of catching up to do to gain parity with Delta. In recent J.D. Power's customer satisfaction survey, Delta had 4 stars and oddly 767 points to American's 3 stars and 729 points. Blah blah blah. Did you want me to go on, or
no? You're right. No,
enough about that. Yeah.
Actually, American Airlines is the main carrier out of the airport near Dr. Steph, Charlotte.
At Charlotte,
yep. Yeah. It's got the monopoly on that airport. I remember Steph saying, and it's one of the. I haven't actually flown with American, but Brian, are they good airline to fly with?
Yeah, I think all 3 of the majors are good, although some have more issues than others. But yeah, they're totally fine, and I have no reservation on flying on any of the 3, whereas I absolutely refuse to fly on Frontier and Spirit. So there definitely is a difference between the ultra low cost carriers and the legacy 3. But yeah, American has a fine product. Mostly why I don't fly them out of LAX, and I know Captain Jeff's going to be upset with me over this, is most of the places I need to go, they're flying the Mad Dog. And I find it, especially in the back of the plane, to be very noisy and cramped, and the 2-3 seating, it just I don't particularly like, but that's just my personal bias against that particular aircraft. But as an airline, American's just fine.
So Mila, the next story is especially for you. It's about an airline we love to talk about on the show, the Q airline. But we'll leave that to you. Pronounce.
Qatar.
Well, that would be nice, except I get some sort of error message because apparently today's not my day for technical stuff.
Sorry, Alexa just piped up behind us.
Oh, did she? Oh, right. Oh, I missed that. Yeah. What was it? Hello, Alexa. Play a fart noise.
Oh, no.
I didn't know if anybody else can open the article, but
yeah. Do you want me to take it, Mila? This is the Qatar. That's okay.
That's fine.
Qatar Airways are going to bring the Airbus A350-1000 to New York's JFK.
Now we've seen one of those very recently.
We have, yeah.
This aircraft very much indeed, and it's going to join the airline's JFK route starting on October the 28th. The airline's first commercial route to the US, operated with this state-of-the-art aircraft. Qatar Airways is the global launch customer for the world's most advanced passenger aircraft, the latest member of the Airbus wide-bodied aircraft portfolio, which currently operates daily non-stop service between Doha and London. And the group chief exec of Qatar Airways says, "We are thrilled to introduce the A350-1000 on flights to and from JFK, one of our key US gateways. The introduction of this next generation aircraft to the route demonstrates our commitment to providing passengers traveling to and from the US with the most modern and technologically advanced aircraft available, ensuring that their experience is second to none. We look forward to welcoming all passengers traveling to and from the US on board this spectacular aircraft. Well, the A350-1000 offers a total of 327 seats across 2 cabins, with 46 Q-Suite business class seats and 281 18-inch extra-wide economy class seats. The aircraft provides enhanced levels of passenger comfort thanks to the lowest twin-engine noise level of any aircraft, advanced air conditioning technology, and full LED mood lighting. Like the A350-900, more than 70% of the A350-1000's lightweight airframe is made from advanced materials combining composites, which is 53%, titanium and advanced aluminium alloys. The aircraft's carbon fiber reinforced plastic fuselage results in lower fuel burn as well as easier maintenance. The A350-1000 also features a distinctive all-new 6-wheel main landing gear and 4% larger wings. The Qatar Airways A350-1000 features the airline's patented award-winning business class experience Q-Suite, which offers the industry's first ever double bed in business class, as well as privacy panels that stow away, allowing passengers in adjoining seats to create their own private room, a first of its kind in the industry. And Q-Suite is currently available on flights to and from JFK, as well as Washington, Chicago and Houston. The airline also recently took delivery of its 4th Gulfstream G650ER executive aircraft, the fastest ultra-long-range business jet in the world, making Qatar Airways the largest owner-operator of Gulfstream G650ERs. And Qatar serves 10 cities across the US, including Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, Dallas-Fort Worth, Houston, Los Angeles, Miami, New York, Philadelphia and Washington. And the airline provides double daily flights from New York's JFK airport. Well, this is going to be very popular, isn't it, folks? Because this is a fantastic aircraft and extremely low noise on the outside, because we heard it and saw it at Farnborough. But I guess the interior experience must be fantastic as well.
Have you seen this one, David?
No, I wish I had. I'd love to fly on one. It looks incredible. Apparently they look incredible, but you can't hear them coming or anything. So.
Yeah, it's very quiet indeed, yeah.
It's impressive, impressive stuff.
Yeah, we didn't get to go on board the aircraft at Farnborough, but that put on quite a good display.
It did, yeah. Although I thought it was quite short, actually, the display, because when they were showing off the A380 2 years ago, I mean that was quite a, I mean that was going around for quite a little while, but they just did a very short routine and then sort of put it on the ground more or less straight away, didn't they?
Yeah.
I'm actually really looking forward to flying it. Singapore Air is going to start up the Newark to Singapore flight come October, and hopefully I'll be able to snag a seat on that shortly. And
we'll expect a full report, Brian. Full report, Brian. Video as well.
19 hours.
Yeah, for the whole 19 hours. That'd be good.
Yes, very good.
So, David, the next story. It's one for you on the express.co.uk.
Yeah, like you said, this is on the express.co.uk, and it's regarding EasyJet. A new service will pick up luggage from your house for just £30.
Ooh.
Let me just get rid of the video that started playing. Right. EasyJet have announced a new service for customers to check in their luggage from home for just £30, so you can be suitcase free at the airport.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
The low-cost airline has teamed up with the home bag drop service Airporter, giving passengers travelling from London Gatwick the option to check their luggage online. Their bags are then collected from their doorstep by drivers and taken directly to the airport, as long as the address is within a certain catchment area.
Here we go. Yeah. I think we might be out of luck, Carlos, for some reason, seeing as we live at the sort of back end of absolutely nowhere.
Airporter will deliver the luggage to EasyJet's bag drop before it is flown to one of the airline's 110 destinations from Gatwick. EasyJet is proud to continue to develop our product offering with innovative companies such as Airporter. The service is available for flights to any of EasyJet's destinations across Europe from London Gatwick, the airline's biggest UK base. According to EasyJet's research, over 3/4 of travellers would prefer to be luggage free on the day of their flight.
I mean, the only thing I would say with this, with a lot of these low-cost carriers, virtually everyone usually plans to actually not have luggage to check in the first place.
I would assume so, and I don't know if this is a new service. Obviously it's new that they've linked up with EasyJet as an airline specifically, but maybe Brian and Nev might know more about it. That I'm sure there is companies out there that do offer this kind of service as a standalone, not joined to the airline, or is this something completely new altogether?
Yeah, I think it's actually a subcontracted service, I think, the airporter thing. But clearly from the picture we're seeing, you have to have an orange suitcase.
Yeah, you have to have an EasyJet suitcase, it seems, in order to be to be qualify, I think, is the key. It's the conditions involved.
I would also worry that that's just one other person that could damage, lose, or do anything to your suitcase. So
shred your bag.
Or shred it, yeah. So who knows? It's just more chance of it to get lost.
But
or
what
damaged.
happens?
In the US, they've been offering that service for a while, and it's not carrier specific.
I'm nervous because I've noticed Owen's taken his mute button off, which means he's got something to say. I'm a bit scared.
I was just going to say exactly what Brian said. In the US, there are ones that aren't affiliated to airlines.
I do.
Yeah, but at that point, I don't understand the difference between using a service like that or just putting your suitcase in a box and shipping it through UPS or Federal Express or anyone to your destination. I've looked at the price of doing that, and the cost is about the same. Okay. And instead of picking it up at the airport at the other end, this way it would go directly to your hotel or the house that you're staying at, whatever your true final destination is. So if you could plan that far ahead, I just don't see the value in using the airline for the same service.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's not the only airline to have pickup available, but like you're saying, the cost is so prohibitive that it's probably just easier to bring it with you.
But then, as I say, we're also used to, when we're flying with our low cost carriers, we're so used to using. It's different, I suppose, if you're flying United and you're going for sort of a couple of weeks or whatever. But EasyJet offering a service where essentially we've got into the habit of packing light for our holiday and are only taking hand luggage in the first place. I don't know. I mean, if it's a free
actually,
service.
I've just thought of something that my grandparents had said. My grandparents were lucky enough to get to go on some cruises a few years back, and one thing my granddad always wanted was to have this ability to do this, to get and I know sometimes that the cruises offer this to pick up your luggage 2 or 3 weeks in advance, and to have it waiting for you in your cabin when you get onto the ship. So possibly for people like my granddad and my granny who probably don't like the hassle of lugging around some suitcases all the way up to the apartment or to the ship or whatever. I think that's a good service, and with the fact that EasyJet do fly to quite a lot of holiday and sun destinations, I think the market for that possibly could fall within those types of people.
And let's not forget as well, once this driver's from Porter Airport has picked up your bag from your house, and then on a Friday at 5 o'clock has hit the M25, your holiday's only a week long. Your suitcase is, you might not see your suitcase for about 3 or 4 weeks.
No, that is always the risk, of course.
So that is where we bring the commercial news segment to a close. But we have got something very, very special lined up for you next. So Nev, what have we got lined up next for our viewers and listeners?
Well, of course, you all know that we were at Farnborough a couple of weeks ago, and the intrepid PT UK video crew was out there.
Is that what we're called? Oh, okay.
Well, I'm just obviously reading it what it says here. Actually, in fact, this segment nearly didn't happen because I was way over the other side of the airfield. I want to get this text from Matt saying, get over to the Dassault stand immediately with your gear because we're going to go on an aircraft and we're going to do an interview. And of course, it was so hot there. There's me and Captain Al dragging ourselves across the airfield.
Yes, you were.
And we eventually found them. And we had extremely good access to this aircraft. And the aircraft in question is the Dassault Falcon 8X. And of course, who better to take us round the aircraft than Pilot Pip?
Plane safety from the flight deck with Pilot Pip.
Hey there everyone, it's Pip here, and we're on board a rather beautiful aircraft. More in my area of the business, we're sitting on a BeepJet, but not just any BeepJet. This is Carlos, pay attention, this is a Dassault, not Dassault. or any other pronunciation, a Dassault Falcon 8X, which is one of the French manufacturer's latest models. And you'll have a look as Nev pans around in a second. You'll see the interior of this aircraft. It's absolutely immaculate and comfortable and luxurious. This is a trijet. It has 3 engines. We'll put some pictures up on the back. So this is a long-range aircraft. It can fly from Paris to Los Angeles, from Paris to Tokyo, for instance. Ultra long range, very comfortable. Can take probably, let's have a look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or several in the back. Probably at least 18, maybe 19 passengers in style on long-range trips. We'll have a look around the cabin in a minute. Down the back there, I'm sure there's going to be a main lounge, a cabin with a double bed, so people can get some sleep on these long trips. You can have, as you can see here, nice civilized business meetings. We have these tables. We have plenty of storage space over here. There'll be certainly very good Wi-Fi connections. At the front there, we'll have a look in a minute. There's a very comprehensive galley area as well for cooking and preparing hot meals. As part of the standard service for anyone operating these aircraft, there'll be a flight attendant or two who will be well trained in presenting first class food for the passengers. This is an extremely comfortable way to fly. So let's have a look around. So we're at SafeJets. We operate the Dassault project. We have done for a number of years. We have a very good relationship with Dassault. We have a number of Falcon 2000 EXs, or the EZ, as it's commonly called. Very popular with the pilots. I've never met a pilot who doesn't like flying the Falcon. Dassault obviously have a real thoroughbred with their production line. They produce many fighter aircraft. So the Falcon handling is very crisp and very smooth and very fighter-like. Now, as I say, this is the 8X. This is one of their later models. We've, as well as the 2000s, we've also had the 7X, although we don't currently have any. But I know it's extremely popular with the pilots and the passengers alike. It's a really very good product, and I hope, I know there's still talks in progress, but I hope that we're going to get perhaps the 8X or even the 9X in the not too distant future. I look forward to it. Okay, so we've moved forward to the front of the aircraft. We're in the galley area now. You can see here this is, again, very high quality. We've got a nice sink here. Somewhere in amongst all these cupboards and things, there'll be a microwave, an oven for preparing hot meals. Lots of storage space as well for all sorts of storing the catering. Let's have a little look. Look at these lovely Dassault branded China cups. Beautiful. There'll be a fridge here as well. I'm sure somewhere in here, don't tell Al, but there'll be whiskies and Baileys and all sorts of lovely drinks to keep people occupied for long flights. So we've moved down to the back of the cabin. If you can see through here, there's the baggage area down there. I'm not sure if you can see that they've got an air conditioning thing plugged into it at the moment. There's plenty of room down there for lots of bags. Also around here is a very nice bathroom. We'll have a look at that in a second. All gold-plated, very Trump-esque, I would say. Here we've got these very nice divans, these couches, which I'm sure can be folded down, and a mattress can be placed on top, and this converts into a very nice double bed. Have a look at this for quality. See these nice gold-plated seatbelt things? Very nice indeed.
We have the EFBs as well. For the chart themselves, it's more a backup, but we have all sorts of software for weight and balance, electronic performance manual, all sorts of software to prepare the mission.
Yeah. We have a similar. I work at Jets. We have a similar philosophy. We use the EFB as the primary approved source, but we generally use the charts on the screens as the main source of briefing.
For me, it makes sense to look at the same direction when you brief, because sometimes the other guy doesn't understand and you see it on his face. So it's important to operate like this for me.
Yes. It's a very lovely flight deck. Plenty of room, Carlos?
How does this compare to the FNM?
It's a little bit bigger, obviously. Some room to stretch out. We've got an overhead panel here, which we only have a very small panel on the Phenom.
So you don't have a small Phenom then?
No, not a big panel. We just have a little panel here at the front, just mainly for lights. There's an extra screen here on the Phenom. We have 3 screens rather than 4. They're slightly bigger than this one, and we have the ability to split. I'm sure you can do that here as well, but you can present any screen on any way you like. Obviously, there's an extra thrust lever here. On the Phenom, we only have 2. But as I mentioned earlier, this is a tri-jet, so there's 3 engines at the back, which is great for ETOPS operations, extended range across remote areas.
The German designers working for the Dutch Fokker company, and of course they're associated with different types, recreating the battles of the Great War. The oldest aircraft type represented at the moment is Turkish Air. Smoke coming from it at the moment, and we've got a non-flight.
Find this and other great shows at the Aviation Media Network.
TheVoicesInYourHead.com.
The Plain Talking UK podcast is a voluntary project that aims to keep you informed with the latest aviation-related stories from newswires across the globe.
Producing our content does cost money though. If you enjoy our show, why not help us keep on the air by making a donation towards the server and website hosting fees through PayPal. Any contributions would be greatly appreciated.
Are you an Amazon user? If so, why not do your shopping through the link on our website? There's no cost to yourself, and Amazon pay us a small referral fee on qualifying purchases.
To find out more about the show and to meet the team, take yourself to our website www.plaintalkinguk.com,
or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/plaintalkinguk, on Twitter via @plaintalkinguk, or get in touch via email on podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. Thanks for listening.
Flybe 5823, Trent Dane for 23-hour Manchester, Wizz Air 6X, climb flight level 210, direct to Bretlands Park. United 123, maintain 280 knots. London 2TME, turn right onto Bravo, link 21 join Alpha, hold at Mora, Speedbird 472, LOC/DME, approach runway 27 left. Follow the green stand 544.
That's enough air traffic control for today, Nat. Bedtime.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to fly a commercial passenger jet? Looked up at the sky and thought, I wish that was me? Well, now anyone has the chance to have a go at flying in a real aircraft simulator. NP Simulations and Flight Experience London, the only official Boeing licensed product of its kind in the UK, offer you the chance to fly anywhere in the world in their fixed-base Boeing 737-800 flight simulator. And that's not all. Ground School London offers many different courses for the up-and-coming pilot looking for a start in aviation. With prices starting at just £109, the sky's the limit. So for the ultimate flight simulator experience, or engaging preparatory courses, including those for schools and colleges, check out the websites at www.london.flightexperience.co.uk and www.groundsschoollondon.com, or call on 020 300 40 616. NP Simulations. Fly your dreams.
Nev, can I just say, sterling piece of work. Round of applause for Nev. Round of applause for Nev.
Very good, yes.
The legend.
Absolutely.
Glad you liked it. Yeah, that was great. And it was such a privilege, wasn't it, to get on board the aircraft. We had to do a little bit of persuading because they weren't immediately keen.
No,
were they?
not on video, were they? They were sort of...
no,
yeah.
but that was great. And so the hospitality they showed us there was fantastic. And what an aircraft.
It is a beautiful aircraft, isn't it? I mean, what a way to fly around, isn't it?
I'll tell you, I bet Pip wishes he flew an aircraft like that for BeepJets.
Yeah, BeepJets, yes indeed. Yes. Yes. I was hoping everybody was going to get away with that, but apparently not. Yes.
No, it was great. It was a great experience to get on board that aircraft, and you had to drag me off it in the end.
Yes, we did. Yes. We sort of lost him. We lost him to the galley. He was obsessed by the galley.
He wasn't asleep somewhere, was he?
No, he wasn't. No. He was fully awake.
You have to admit, Owen's eyes did light up when we were shown the crew rest area.
Yeah,
that was good. They have an amazing crew rest area there. It's full flatbed for the crew. You can modify it into a nice armchair or into storage or into anything you really want. It's absolutely fantastic.
But it wasn't made out of cloth or plastic, was it?
No.
And it was.
No, leather. Only the best.
Yeah,
of course, absolutely. Wow.
And the galley was a fantastic place to work. Everything was very ergonomic, very easy to reach. All the different cupboards and ovens and microwaves and fridges and what have you. A fantastically designed galley and cabin. So I enjoy them. I'd love to get the chance to work in one. Maybe someday.
Richard King has asked in the chat.
If you guys had the hat, you would have had an easier time.
Right. Okay. What's the other side?
Other side.
Other way.
Other side. That's it.
Yeah. There we go. Look at that. Yeah. Very good. Very award-winning.
Yeah. Compliments of Rob Mark and several of his friends that work at.
Indeed. I'd say Richard King just asked us all in the chat room, did we manage to steal anything?
Richard, I've noticed in Carlos's kitchen a Falcon salt and pepper shaker here, so I'd probably answer is probably yes.
Right.
Oh no.
Okay. Yes, and of course, as seeing as Eoin has sort of brought up the fact that he fell asleep or somewhere, I can't help but do this. I'm really sorry.
Have you seen this, David? Keep watching.
This is quite funny. I'm sorry. I'm going to embarrass Eoin just because he's here, because it's just yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Oh, so I've heard the audio version of this, but it's even better to watch it in real life.
Absolutely.
If you haven't seen this, everyone, you need to
get on YouTube. It's Captain Al. It is very fun. Poor Eoin was having what we like to refer to as a power nap, everyone. It's been a very stressful day, staring at aeroplanes. And the best bit about that is when he woke up, it was so hot, he was completely dry by the time he woke up. Had no idea it had happened. Absolutely brilliant.
That is just terrible.
I know.
Also Captain Alish.
Yeah, it's very Captain Al, isn't it? And you know, what's lovely about this?
The skill with which Al did that suggests to me he's done that.
He's done that before, hasn't he?
I'm also looking forward to the next time them two are together, because Owen, you need to get revenge there.
Something's got to be worse. Yeah.
This is going to get out of hand quickly, I can tell.
Yeah, come on, Owen.
If Al's as good at this as he obviously is, does this mean there are a lot of FOs flying around
with wet crotches?
Yeah,
absolutely. He's had a lot of experience.
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. So Owen's going to get his thinking cap on now with a view to actually getting his own back. This should be fun. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, sorry, Eoin, I couldn't resist.
No, it's all a bit of crack.
That's the most Irish thing you've said all evening, mate.
So as you
I've recently become painfully aware of just how Irish that sentence is and how it doesn't really translate to other places.
No, indeed.
That's right. Matt let it out.
Yeah, it's fine. Nobody will know. Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, so as you know, we have got two very special guests joining us on the show this evening, and they've had rather a busy and hectic last kind of 6 months or whatever. So they come and talk to us about what they've been up to.
Can I suggest you start with David, because we seem to have lost Mila for a brief moment.
Have we lost Mila?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's start with David. Hopefully she'll be back by the
time. David.
No pressure or anything. Yeah, absolutely.
So David, we had you on the show quite a while back now. We had you on the show, don't we? To chat about
he was one of only two people to turn up to 100.
Oh yeah, that was my first appearance.
First appearance. But you've been here to the PTUK.
Yeah, this is my third visit actually. Yeah.
But what's been going on with you?
I think last time I was here, my plan was to head down to Southampton as a integrated student and go from zero to hero. And about this time, I'd be a pilot.
Right.
But things don't always go to plan in the aviation industry, as we soon learn. Obviously there's huge costs involved in it, as everyone knows and keeps bringing up, which is why we have this pilot shortage. So various discrepancies with banks and agreements and everything has led to me take a slightly different route, which is no bad thing at all. So I got my ground school on that way, did my 14 exams, ready for my to become a commercial pilot. And since then, I've been very busy. I went to Spain and gained my PPL.
Oh,
and then I purely only went there for better weather. It meant I could go there for a month and almost guarantee that I'd get things done, which luckily enough I did. And then I've come back to the UK, where the weather's been equally as good. Done some flying around Suffolk and Norfolk. You might have heard me overhead. And then I also returned to Spain to do some hour building. because if you don't know, you need to do a certain hours requirement before you start your commercial license. So I needed 175 hours before I could start my commercial pilot's license course, which I finished off within the last couple of months. So literally within the last 3 weeks, I have started working towards and taking lessons on my commercial pilot's license, which I'm currently doing in a Piper Warrior, and then we'll be doing in a Piper Arrow. And then at the end of this month or early next month, I should be doing my commercial pilot's license skills test. Wow. So hopefully by the end of this year, everything will be wrapped up. After that, I'll need to do a multi-engine rating, so I can fly something with 2 engines, obviously, and an instrument rating, so I can fly in clouds. And then my aim is, as I said, at the end of this year, hopefully have all that knocked on the head and be job hunting. So hopefully the pilot shortage, I've called it at the right time.
Yeah, could work to your advantage. Actually.
Yeah, we keep hoping, we keep praying that it is good timing.
So David, you said
Fingers crossed for you, David.
Thank you.
Mine was back. Phew!
So you said you've done some flying in Spain. How does the cost difference between flying here in the UK and training in Spain?
That was a big deciding factor on going to Spain. The main thing for me is it is slightly cheaper hourly, slightly cheaper. But one of the main things is I could take a month off work and get it all done, rather than I would have thought if I took a month off work here, you could be waiting for English weather and who knows what. So it is slightly. I know it's good now. We've had a brilliant summer this year, but it's a bit more reliable. That's also why I went to do my hour building over there. I find it probably was about 2/3 of the cost for the amount of hours that I was doing. So it was a slightly better deal. And the weather was more reliable over the course of the whole month.
So is that like an hourly rate for hiring the aircraft?
Yeah, an hourly rate. We don't want to talk about figures. So over here, I think from the local airfield here, we're talking about £140-ish an hour, something around that sort of figure, for a Cessna 150. And I got it for around €110 an hour. So it doesn't sound a huge amount, but when you're paying for like 50, 75 hours, it adds up.
And what's the flying like in Spain?
I'm sorry. I was just wondering, what about the difference between learning to fly in Spain versus, I know for many Europeans, flying in Florida is so incredibly popular. So why not just pop down to Florida and do the training there?
That was my other option, to be honest. The main benefit of me going to Spain was that I went to a UK CAA licensed training organisation. So I was issued with a UK PPL, which meant I had to do no conversions or anything like that. I got a UK PPL. I was taught the UK way, so hopefully everything I learned there I can bring across here to the UK, and not too many differences.
Chat room question. Pliny82 says, what did you do to build hours?
So I did a little bit of flying around here, but because of the costs, I thought it'd be better to take off some time off work and go to Spain and rent a Cessna 150 for a whole month and try and bash out 100 hours was my aim. It took a little bit longer than a month, but it was pretty much flying every day. Flying from Jerez Airport in the south, well, you couldn't get much south of Spain. The weather was lovely, and for about the first 25 hours, it was amazing fun going to new airports and new places. And after that, you kind of think, right, I'll go to that place again, and I'll go to that place again. But eventually, the hours do build up. Try and make it a bit different every time, and eventually we got there.
Richard King is asking in the chat room as well. He says, did you have to do the ATPL ground exams, and are they still frozen for 5 years?
Yeah, so I've done a really weird way of doing things around. It's a bit unusual, but my ATPL ground exams I did in Southampton. They took me about 6 or 7 months to complete, and they are actually valid for 36 months, so 3 years, which now allows me 3 years to gain my CPL and instrument rating. So basically they're valid for 3 years.
Oh, that's not... Well, yeah, you've got to cram it all in very swiftly, yeah.
Yeah, it soon goes, and then you think that the British weather comes along and it could slow down a bit, so...
What's well, obviously, because Spain is probably a little bit more warmer than the UK.
Yeah, certainly at the moment
and,
as well.
as you know, the heat does affect the performance in light aircraft. Was it kind of a bit more challenging flying light aircraft in Spain?
Yeah, it was a bit mountainous where I was, so you had to be very aware of the mountains. But I think the main difference was when I did so many hours on my own, and a Cessna 150 or a 152 with one person on board it's fine. It seems to take off okay, and there's no real performance issues. But then as soon as I took a passenger with me, Sophie came and visited me, and I forgot that it makes a big difference with 2 people on board. And I was like, go bang, take off. And we eventually got there. But you're right, the hot air does make a massive difference, especially in the middle of the day.
And also, let's not forget, I mean, Sophie is quite slight.
Yes,
I mean, there's not very much to her, bless her.
So
it's and even with even a small amount of weight difference, if you like, makes a huge difference to the way the aeroplane.
In a Cessna 150, you've only got a few £100 as like extra, under its max load, so it does make a big difference.
Richard Adams has asked in the chat room here, actually, saying, is it a simpler airspace for training there rather than here in the south of England? Is that one of the main reasons?
I think anywhere is simpler than the southeast of England for airspace. If you look at a chart round, but certainly as you get towards towards Stansted, Luton, Southend, which is where I'm learning at the moment, it's incredibly congested airspace. It's good practice. It's good to fly in airspaces like that, but Spain is a lot more. I think forgiving is the right word. You can kind of wander around and get off course a bit more, and it's not so tight.
I think one of the questions that a lot of people ask when you learn to fly in different countries, as in countries that speak a different language, obviously in Spain, how was it, obviously contacting ATC and stuff and ground?
I think we're very lucky, and a lot of the students that have been learning alongside me have reminded me of how lucky we are that ATC and all pilots in the world have to pass an English proficiency test before they can, which is incredibly fortunate for us native English speakers. But I did, while I was out there, go to a few smaller airfields, and I thought, it'll be fine. Everyone has to speak English. Of course it'll be fine. And then I turn up there, speak on the radio, blah, 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 and there's about 7 people all in the circuit speaking Spanish. So then I was like, again, does anyone speak English in the circuit? Anyone speaking English? And then at that point I had no idea what runway they were using, what circuit they were using, and thought it's probably a good idea if I don't land here and I go somewhere else. But interesting, a lot of the Spanish ATC will talk to Vueling and any other Spanish carriers in Spanish. Even at a commercial level, they'll speak to them in Spanish, so it sometimes gets a bit confusing. For your picture that you're building up, you think, okay, so there's a commercial airliner somewhere or other that is just spoken to in Spanish, but I don't really know where he is.
So Nev, any questions from you?
Owen, I think, had one.
Owen?
Oh no, I just had a question. How far in Spain did you get to go from Jerez? Did you get to travel? To sort of central Spain.
My plan was I had planned a few flights actually to up to Barcelona and Sabadell, which is where I did my PPL, and I really wanted to plan a trip out there. But I found there was often things in the way. It was either mountainous terrain, certainly on the Cessna 150, and not having the capabilities and the performance possibly to get me through, also the endurance, and also the weather. I'd be very careful about weather systems and the mountainous terrains, which put me off going too far away. We went along the south coast, maybe probably 5 hours away is my furthest flight, not in one go obviously, but I did venture out a little way.
Sorry, Nev, I so rudely cut you off there. Do carry on, sir.
Carry on, Nev.
I was going to ask you, David, how many hours do you need before you could take your instrument rating?
So the instrument rating hours is actually less than the commercial license hours requirements, and I shamefully can't remember the hours requirement for the instrument rating. I think Mila might know if she's there. But for the CPL is 175 hours, but maybe Mila would know about the instrument rating.
Mila?
To be quite honest, I don't really know, because I did my multi-engine at the same time with my IR. So for me, the multi-engine hours were limiting, and then they just added the IR to it.
I think that's the case a lot of the time. Moving on to a multi-engine, it's often cases of insurance policies and everything. They obviously won't let you go under a certain amount of hours.
We only did 20 hours of multi-engine sim and then 20 hours of actual flying. So that was 40 hours total.
So
after the CPL.
David, the aircraft you've been flying, and you've flown a bit of a mixture then of Cessna and the Piper products. Any other?
I've flown, I've flown quite a few actually. I think more than a few PPL holders. What have I got? So I started off with a PA-28, and then I went to what I flown to? A Robin, which is a French low-wing 2-seater aircraft, and then I went to a Sakata Rally, which is a really interesting little aircraft, 2 seats as well, and it's got weird slats which pop out on the leading edge of the wing, like you'd imagine on a 747 or anything, but these are just aerodynamically operated and they pop out. Bit of time in one of them. and then to a Cessna 172, a Cessna 150, a Cessna 152, and now on a Piper Arrow. Next week on a Piper Arrow. And I think that's everything. Yeah, that's everything.
Not the Cirrus yet, then.
I would love to fly a Cirrus. I keep seeing them, especially in this weather with the air conditioning.
Oh, I know.
Oh, I love that.
Oh my God, yeah. One day that would be incredible.
Yeah, yeah. So, what's the plan next? Obviously, you're here back in the UK at the moment. Are you heading out again to Spain?
No, I plan to finish the rest of my training in Essex, fly CPL first, and then the multi-engine instrument rating. Once I've got those two down, I'll be looking for a MCC course, a multi-crew cooperation course, get that completed, and then job hunt. But I'm going to try and stay in the UK for the rest of my training. And obviously the instrument rating isn't too reliant on good weather. That can be done in poorer weather. So it's not, as a PPL trying to hour build, you really need good weather. But as a student doing the instrument rating and everything, it shouldn't be too bad.
So Mike has actually asked in the chat room here, David, how do you feel about the old high wing, low wing, and do you have any preferences and why?
Yes, I do. A lot of people say, no, they're both the same. No, I definitely do. I prefer low wing. Definitely prefer a low wing. Yeah, I really do. I find it a real pain in the circuit when you're turning base or crosswind, when you're doing like the turns in the circuit, and you've got the airfield perfectly in sight, and more importantly,
Mila's agreeing with you. This is what we like.
Really importantly, you've got traffic in sight ahead of you on final. You know where they are. Everything's perfect. You go around, turn around the corner, and the bloody wing of a Cessna just blocks everything, and you lose where everything is. And then you have to report to ATC, traffic not in sight. Please, low wing. Every time.
Low wing every time. There we are. Well, we really do wish you all the very best of luck with your training. Obviously, you will keep us posted.
Yeah, I'll be back, I'm sure.
Yeah, what's the airline of choice when you do?
I don't have an airline of choice, no.
If anyone who'll employ me.
If I get paid to fly a plane, I'll be a very happy man.
Yeah, well, there we go. There we go.
Well, yeah, all the best.
Thank you.
Can I sneak in a quick question?
Yeah, do.
Yeah, Dave. Brian.
One
Bob.
Yeah. Alan.
Huh?
Yeah.
Who? What?
Carry on. Yes, do chip in, sir. Carry on.
Okay. With the IFR training, I'm not a pilot, never pretended to play one on TV. However, I am a scuba instructor. And one of the things with scuba instructing, after you get your basics down, learning to dive in really adverse conditions, I think, makes you a much better pilot. So doing your IFR training, flying in inclement weather, do you think that could actually aid your training and make you a better IFR pilot?
I certainly think so. I actually coincidentally did my first IF training under the hood today. And I've obviously got limited experience from here, from people and everything. It certainly makes you a better pilot. My instructor's already noticed that you learn to trust the instruments a bit more rather than just look at the picture outside. And if you can learn to trust the instruments and trust what they're telling you, I certainly think that makes you a better pilot all round, certainly.
Good, thank you.
Well, all the best, David.
Thank you very much.
Obviously, you'll do well.
Thank you very much.
I know you will. So, Mila, hopefully you're with us still.
Yes, I am, and
Very
hopefully
good.
the connection holds up.
Yes, fingers crossed.
So, Mila,
hope it will.
You've had an incredibly busy last 6 months, haven't you? You've moved to a fresh new job, haven't you? Flying an amazing aircraft, actually, haven't you?
I have, yes. I moved to Acme Viking, let's call it that.
Yeah.
Because they're up north. And it's been an amazing experience so far. It's just wow. I moved on to the ATP, which is a turboprop aircraft. It's a little bit smaller than the 7.3, but a little bit bigger than some other multi-engine aircraft. And it's been amazing. So yeah.
No, it's been quite a journey that obviously you've had to get to this point, Mila, and it must feel amazing to finally be sort of in the air, and I know you've still got some work to do and that, but it must be so nice to literally be living the dream, as I always say when I'm talking.
But Mila, you're flying cargo, aren't you?
I am, yes. And last week we transported a live animal.
Ooh.
It was either some fish or some
wow
something like that, and I like to think it was a turtle.
Yeah.
Just for the idea, you know, I'm transporting something nice.
So, Mila, I'm guessing that it's much more enjoyable transporting, cargo rather than having to worry about passengers in the back.
Yeah.
Carrying their bags off.
This is it.
But no, how's the flying going anyway, Marley? You're sort of fresh on the job. You've only just kind of started in that. You're building your hours up as you go now. So obviously you're doing. Are you making any trips to the UK at all, or is it mostly in and around the Netherlands, kind of?
Sorry, I kind of missed that question because my connection dropped.
Oh. I say you're obviously doing building up your hours and stuff now in the new job. Are you flying mainly within in the Netherlands, or are you coming across to the UK?
Well, I fly both in the UK and in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, so the north side of Europe, basically. And last week, or actually, I just got back from Aberdeen this morning.
Oh wow!
Oh,
gosh!
Yeah.
So obviously you're sitting right seat as first officer. I mean, are you getting the opportunity to do most of the work, or is it kind of sharing the tasks?
Well, I'm still in line training, so I'm still learning the ropes and all the things about the aircraft. Or, well, you do the technical course, the ground course, then you go into the simulator, and then you go further training on the aircraft itself. And they're allowing me to fly more than monitor, but that's nice. Just for now, and then eventually it'll even out. But yeah, it's on the ground. I do the taxi clearances, the radio work, the setups, the loading of the aircraft, because we don't always have a load master, and then I have to do that as well. And then either pilot flies and the other monitors, and then when we land, yeah.
Actually, Tony S is asking a good question, Mila, because obviously, we all kind of think that most of the cargo flying happens, when we're all tucked up in bed asleep. But so, how do you handle if you do work late nights? How do you handle those late nights and early mornings?
Well, the company kind of way of dealing with it, like the way everybody deals with it, is sleep as much as possible whenever you can. So there's no shame in telling your colleagues, hey, I'm gonna go to bed right now, even if it's like in the afternoon or early in the morning or in the evening. So that's really promoted, to take good care of yourself, to sleep well, to eat well, to exercise. And they're all really awesome about it. So that's one way, just whenever you're tired, try and get a nap or sleep. And they're also really open about it, and they talk about it a lot. Like, how do you deal with not being able to sleep, or how do you deal with sleeping like 4 hours in a row, then working, then sleeping a little again? So there's a lot of communication about it, and everybody's really trying to find out what works for them and helping each other and trying to find out what works.
Actually, Jacob Darlington Brown has said he loved flying freight. No one complained when making a hard landing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Nev, have you got anything you'd like to chip in with, sir?
No, I was just going to ask you, Mila. This is obviously quite a new job for you. Are you enjoying it?
I'm loving it every day. And they're even talking about changing the roster to fly 1 week on, 1 week off. And I asked them, well, do we really have to? Because I'd like to fly more. Yeah, I'm really loving it. It's awesome. I've got the next few rosters I've got lined up are pretty packed. So I'm really enthusiastic about it. It's been a little calm. I go into the simulator next week, and after that I'm in England for a while. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's great.
Well, it's a fantastic experience, and you've worked so hard to get where you are. So many congratulations.
Round of applause,
yeah, indeed. Actually,
thank you.
While you're in the chair, Nev, I see there's a question from Micah there for her as well.
How are you feeling about the ATP? As you loved the 737 so much. I do love the 737 a lot, but this is my first aircraft, and it's completely different than a 737. It handles different, it feels different. the way you fly it is also a little bit different, but I'm loving it just as much because it's an amazing aircraft, and it's also my first aircraft, so you know.
You're always going to be in love with your first aircraft, aren't you? Absolutely.
David, you've got a question for Mila.
Yeah, it's how have you found the type rating so far? Has it, comparing to the rest of the training you've already done, how has it been?
The type rating training is definitely the hardest part.
Oh, thanks.
Yay!
For me, it was at least because it's.
Oh no!
Yes, it was going so well, wasn't it? You see, it's
poor Mila.
She's fallen off.
When that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. She'll no doubt be back very shortly. But anyway, we're kind of running out of time, guys. I'm afraid, so we are going to have to sort of.
We've run out of light. That's for
we've
sure.
run out of light as well.
Matt,
That's a
don't go to my camera because it's like a shining six head.
Look at that! Isn't that lovely? It's marvellous. Yes, so we're sort of running out of time here. So she's back. Quick. Quick.
Yay, quick. Carry on, Mila, and Matt will edit this into seamlessly.
I ain't touching it. It's fine. It's all part of the fun. It's all part of the live show.
Can you remember?
So to come back to your question, it's tough because you have to do all the exercises that the authorities need you to do, but of course simulator time is really expensive. So you're in a session, you're constantly doing exercise after exercise, and there's no time to think about it really, because you need to move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and that's what made it for me pretty tough. And now that I'm on the line, of course, you have a little bit more time to think about what you're doing because everything is in sequence more than it is in the simulator.
Great, can't wait.
So.
Would you like to have a go at the cargo kind of thing?
Why not?
David?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely would,
yeah.
Actually, Milo, I've got another quick question while you're there. And I hope this doesn't get you in trouble. Are you allowed to take people in the jump seat?
We are, actually.
I thought, one of the perks of being a cargo pilot, I thought,
Oh.
We need to fill in some
then
sort
how
of
does one sign up?
form, and you need to fill in a form, and you need to get approval, and then there's rostering and all these things involved. So it's
basically no.
time.
Yes, that's very complicated. Yeah, absolutely.
But no, but it's allowed, and yeah. You can
So
do
if
it.
I show up next week, that won't be an issue.
Yeah, as long as you're in a box, Brian. You have to be in a
That
box.
will be an issue because I'm in the simulator next week, so that's no flying next week.
Mail yourself to Mila, and then she can fly you over here to the UK.
Yeah, let's put some air holes on the side.
Yeah,
just make sure you keep the heat up in the cargo
What's the worst that can
hold.
happen there? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
I can't see a problem with that. Yeah.
Oh, no. Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for your info and chat, Mila. It's been lovely to speak to you. Lovely to have you on the show. But it's always nice to catch up and see how you are getting on. So it's great to see that everyone here is getting on well with their flying and aviation careers.
The family are doing well.
I know
aren't they?
the family are doing well. The kids are
to.
doing well, man.
Yes, absolutely. We're feeling very proud, aren't we, as parents?
Proud parents we are. So we're going to start to wrap up the show then, and we're going to make a quick plug again for our barbecue, which is coming up in a few weeks' time on the 18th of August. If you're thinking of joining us here over at Seething Airfield, make sure you do check us an email, podcast@planetalkinguk.com. We've got quite a lot of people attending so far. We've got a nice little
I've
list
mended
of
his
guests.
camera now. It's all fine.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And we've got a good guest list of people coming over to see us, flying in, driving in. It's going to be a great time.
Yes.
Hopefully the weather will, fingers crossed, will be awesome.
Yes. And if we have, you will hopefully over the weekend. I'm afraid, Carlos, over the weekend, all of those who have already been in touch. Yes, you may look concerned. All those who have been in touch are going to receive an email this week about preliminary plans. And basically, if you haven't received an email by Monday and you are coming,
poke me. Please
do send us another email. Basically, so absolutely. So if you haven't heard from us come Monday, please do. It's got to get in touch again because it's probably gone. We have had a couple of problems with emails going astray.
Yeah, we're going to sort out the timings and stuff, and obviously I will put in the email the details of exactly where Seething Airfield is for those of you who are not local to the area. Hopefully we'll welcome as many people as we can to there. It'll be a great day, so look forward to seeing you all there. So social media links, Matt, where can people find out about the show?
I don't know. Oh, sorry, facebook.com/PlaneTalkingUK. Our Twitter handle is @PlaneTalkingUK. You'll find us on Instagram and all sorts of things. Just basically search social media for Plane Talking UK. The website is www.planetalkinguk.co.com, is it? Yes, .com. Sorry. I'm having a brain freeze. And basically, if you want to watch us on... if you want to watch us live, we usually record the show on a Friday or a Saturday morning. It depends a bit on everybody's schedule. But take yourself to youtube.com. Why not subscribe to our channel? Ooh. And when we go live, you'll get a little push notification on your phone or in your email to tell you that we are live.
If you remember.
Yeah.
If you remember.
And don't forget, if you want to grab yourselves one of our PT UK t-shirts, Mila is actually modelling one for us.
There we go. Very good. Yes, very good.
So if you want to look as stunning as Mila does in a PT UK t-shirt, then go to our website and click on the store button. Yeah, because we had a listener purchase one this week,
chap by the name of Daryl Brown. Hello, Daryl. Thank you very much for your emails this week. He's actually living in Hong Kong, but he's coming to Lowestoft. Would you believe?
Why?
So we're not.
Why?
Well, I know, but some people have family commitments and they have to. So it's a little bit. So he's coming from a very lovely part of Hong Kong. It has to be said.
Yeah, I know.
To boring old Lowestoft, where I'm going to hopefully meet up with him and deliver the t-shirt in person.
Wow, that's good.
There we are.
That is service.
That is service, I think. So,
Matt,
yes. I did offer to take it to Hong Kong, but Carlos was less keen for some reason.
I was going to say, if we sell one in Australia next, could you take that one out there as well?
More than delighted. Yes, absolutely. Okay. If you're paying, Carlos, I'd be thrilled.
We'll stick you on that. We'll stick you on that flight, that direct flight from Heathrow, the Qantas one. Was it 17 hours, Nev?
Right.
Yeah, to Perth.
I think Matt would love that.
Yeah. In economy.
Yeah, but it's not a 757, so you just won't enjoy it.
Yes. Well, if it's not, I won't do any complaints.
It is a Dreamliner, so probably wouldn't be going anyway.
That's true. You see, he's been quiet for so long, and then he chips in like that, doesn't he? Honestly, these blooming cabin crew, you can never rely on them.
Excellent. Well, we're going to say a big thanks as well. Don't forget to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening, watching the show live. Thanks to everyone who has joined us in there. And obviously, not forgetting as well everyone who downloads the show as an audio version on iTunes and all the other amazing podcasty type apps that are available to download the show. Thanks to you guys as well. Yes. So that is where we're going to bring episode number 228 of the show to a close. Big thanks to Mila for joining us tonight. Thanks, Mila. She's still there.
And I'm having an amazing time, so thanks for having me.
And also to David here. Thank you for coming over here and joining us live in the studio.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it.
And also to Brian. Thank you, Brian Coleman, for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great being here.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure.
Not forgetting Eoin, who dropped in to see us. I hope everything's going well for you, Eoin. And thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Sorry for being a little bit late to the party, but thanks for letting me on the show. And yeah, it's been great talking to you.
Excellent, and always not forgetting Nev,
the legend,
the man,
Nev. the legend in his own lifetime.
Nev, thanks for all your sterling work as always, and let's not forget we have got loads more sterling work from Nev coming up in future episodes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've got lots of Farnborough content to show you over the next few weeks, and plenty of stuff. And I should be bringing the video gear to Seething as well.
I'm not sure me and 4K are friends, to be honest with you, Nev. I'm not going to lie. I don't think I'm going to look great in widescreen. It has to be said.
And on that bombshell, that's it for episode 228. Thanks again. Join us all next week for the next show. So from here in the studio and from everywhere around the globe, where we all are. Goodbye.
Everyone say goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.